I was clearly training in martial arts. How I became a being with supernatural powers. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 326 Mountains. Looking at Qin Yang, who was rushing towards him, Qin Yang was calm and didn't even make a move. Bang! The green bull demon understood what Qin Yang meant and exerted force on its four hooves and pushed forward with its sharp horns fiercely. A scream. The explosive power of the green bull demon was very terrifying and instantly smashed Qin Yang's body into pieces, flying more than 10 meters away. At the same time, the two horns of the green bull demon suddenly flashed with green light and then gathered together like an electric current, turning into a green light, shooting at Qin Yang. With a sound of Z, Qin Yang screamed and was directly melted by the green light. Qin Yang was slightly surprised. You also know this trick? He had never seen the green bull demon use energy attacks before. A weak thought came. This was the thought of the green bull demon. Although it didn't understand human language, it could still communicate simply. Qin Yang also understood the meaning of this thought. The green bull said that he suddenly learned this trick after eating too many spirit stones. It seems that not only spiritual masters, but also monsters need a lot of spiritual stones. See if there are any spiritual stones in this desolate moon forbidden land, and find more for you. Qin Yang said lightly. The green bull demon immediately felt happy. When the man and the bull were about to move forward, a gloomy temple building appeared strangely not far from them. Red lanterns were hung high on both sides of the temple, bloody and weird. There really is a temple. It seems that the man really didn't lie to me. Qin Yang raised his eyes. The dark temple was just a dozen meters away from him, and there was no movement. When I was in Yangning's house city, the evil spirits ran away when they saw me. I didn't expect that there would be evil spirits who dared to appear in front of me today. Qin Yang smiled and strode towards the temple. Bang! He kicked hard. The shabby wooden door of the dark temple was kicked open by him. Qin Yang strode inside. The temple suddenly lit up with dense red lanterns. In the middle was a statue of an ugly, compassionate face, over 15 meters high. The statue seemed to be bleeding under the illumination of the scarlet lanterns. But Qin Yang had a strange feeling in his heart. This ghost statue seemed to be bleeding for the world. I'm a ghost of disaster. I can eliminate all disasters for the world. The ugly ghost statue actually spoke. He was huge, bleeding, and looked down at Qin Yang. Really? Then you are also miserable. How about this? I will save you and let you no longer suffer. Qin Yang smiled. How dare you? How dare you blaspheme me? The ugly ghost statue was angry. The scarlet lanterns of the whole temple began to flicker. The next moment, the red lanterns hanging in the temple flew up strangely, and strange human faces emerged and suddenly pounced on Qin Yang, looking for death. Qin Yang sneered. Bidao Zenwu Yuan Qi appeared all over his body. A deep and fierce shadow of the black tortoise suddenly appeared behind him. When he released his own ki, it seemed to have a terrible conflict with the aura of the temple. The faces of those scarlet lanterns screamed wildly. This is Qin Yang's current ki. His physical ki and blood are too huge now. Bidao Zenwu Zuanjing is a martial art that restrains demons. He also has the extremely evil magic. After all these integrations, he formed his current terrifying ki. Puff. Those scarlet lanterns could not withstand the terrifying ki emitted by the black tortoise shadow and suddenly melted. Even the entire temple exploded in an instant. For a while, only Qin Yang and the ugly ghost statue were left. King Niu hid in the distance to watch the show. You deserve to die. The ugly ghost statue was extremely angry. It suddenly stood up from the altar and stretched out its bloody claws to pinch Qin Yang. Cut. Qin Yang held one hand in the air, and Bidao Zenwu's ki quickly turned into a platinum longsword and chopped it out fiercely. Swoosh! A blade light more than 10 meters long appeared instantly. This blade light was extremely sharp, and in the blink of an eye, it cut off the arm of the ugly ghost statue. The next moment, Qin Yang jumped in the air, appeared in front of the ugly ghost statue's head, and punched out. Dragon subduing divine power to suppress the sea. Boom. With a loud roar, the head of the ugly ghost statue was smashed by Qin Yang's fierce punch. Then the whole ugly ghost statue was shattered and cracked in an instant. The fist force had not completely dissipated, and it turned into a violent airflow that swept in all directions. This desolate moon forbidden land is really full of evil spirits. Anyone that comes out is a blood spirit level evil spirit, Qin Yang said to himself. He gave a look to the blue cow in the distance, and the man and the cow left quickly. A few days later, Qin Yang and the blue cow finally arrived in front of the mountain range. It was not clear from a distance before, and it was seen after getting closer. This mountain range is also strange, with a huge gully in the middle. It was as if the entire mountain range was split open by a giant sword wielded by a god in the sky, which created such a spectacle. Not only that, the entire mountain range was riddled with holes, large and small. It looked like the mountain wall of this mountain range was a bit like a hornet's nest. This phenomenon was easy to explain. It was obviously caused by the white sword rain before. In addition to Qin Yang, many warriors had already gathered at the foot of the mountain range. Seeing Qin Yang leading the green ox, these people just looked suspicious, but did not say much. Qin Yang took a look, and found that there were also traces of people in the mountain range. These warriors gathered at the foot of the mountain should not dare to climb the mountain, but only dare to stay here to defend. He did not waste words, leading the green ox directly to the top of the mountain. I have heard of this guy. It seems that he offended the person from the white sword sect before. Someone looked at Qin Yang's figure and said softly, I seem to have heard of this. At that time, they said that the man was carrying a green bull. It turned out to be him. He dared to go up the mountain alone. He is very brave. Who dares to enter the forbidden land of desolate moon is not brave. Then why don't you climb the mountain? That depends on whether you are strong enough. Two warriors were talking, and they actually quarreled. When Qin Yang climbed to the middle of the mountain, he suddenly stopped. He looked to the left a few meters away, where there were two pieces of broken stones. Qin Yang walked over to check. The two pieces of broken stones should have been one piece, but now they were cut by some sharp weapon, and the cut was as smooth as a mirror. Qin Yang gently placed his hand on the cut surface of one of the broken stones. But in a trance, he felt a terrifying and burning sword intent. This murderous intent was as radiant as a sun in the sky, but it was filled with endless murderous intent. For a moment, even Qin Yang's hair stood on end. He had to release his own energy to offset this ray of terrifying sword intent. I didn't expect this residual sword intent to be so terrifying. A martial saint should not be able to reach this kind of power. I'm afraid only a master who has ascended to heaven can do it. Qin Yang muttered to himself. Crack suddenly. The piece of gravel he touched suddenly turned into powder. It was completely destroyed and shattered by the sword intent. The master who has ascended to heaven. And that terrifying roar, it seems that this mountain range hides a big secret. Qin Yang stood up and looked at the top of the mountain. Chapter 327 Don't move. When Qin Yang and King Niu came to the ravine on the top of the mountain, they looked down. The ravine was bottomless and dark. Can you go down? Qin Yang looked at King Niu. The ravine was too deep, and he could only descend along the mountain wall. If he jumped down, it would be too dangerous. King Niu nodded to Qin Yang. He saw it came to the mountain wall, and its four hooves suddenly grew sharp claws, and suddenly inserted into the mountain wall, and slowly descended. That's alright. Qin Yang was a little surprised. It seems that King Niu has indeed grown a lot, after eating the spirit stone. Seeing this, he was relieved and followed King Niu to sink into the ravine below. The man and the cow sank very fast. After half an hour, they finally sank to the bottom of the valley. Qin Yang asked King Niu to follow him and go deep along the ravine. The end of this ravine seems to be the belly of the mountain. Qin Yang's expression moved slightly. Sure enough, after half an hour, they entered the belly of a mountain. The belly of the mountain here seemed to be hollowed out, with a strange and dark palace ruins. Many sects or solitary warriors were exploring the palace ruins. There were red flames flickering everywhere, accompanied by some voices. Qin Yang and King Niu also explored the palace ruins. These buildings seem a little weird. Qin Yang looked at these palace ruins with a surprised look. He has been to many ruins. Whether it is the ruins of the city or the ruins of the Xuanwu sect, he has been there. These are all ruins from the Dacian kingdom period. According to Zhao's and Mo's guess, Kunshan continent, Xianfeng Dalan, and Zhuanggang continent were originally one in the mythological era. During the Dacian dynasty, the architectural style should not have changed much. But when he walked along and saw these palace ruins, he felt that they were rough, hideous, and gloomy. Many terrifying and strange patterns can also be seen in some broken walls. Qin Yang even felt like he was walking in a dark hell. Qin Yang. A hoarse voice broke Qin Yang's thoughts. He looked back in surprise. A Taoist with a wooden sword on his back, a weathered face, and a short beard appeared behind him. Liu Yan. Qin Yang looked surprised. This young Taoist was the spiritual master he had met in Yangning Prefecture city before. Liu Yan. But compared to before, this spiritual master seemed to have become much more depressed and decadent, with a dead look in his eyes. It's really you, Qin Yang. Liu Yan was also surprised. He called out when he saw Qin Yang's familiar back. Of course it's me. Qin Yang smiled. I didn't expect that we would meet again in Xianfeng continent. Liu Yan smiled slightly. I didn't expect it either. Qin Yang nodded. Reunited in a different place, the two found an empty corner in the palace ruins and talked. Why did you come to Xianfeng continent? Qin Yang couldn't help asking. Since I left Yangning Prefecture, I have continued to travel around the Deu dynasty, slaying demons and killing monsters. But gradually, I found that there were more and more evil spirits, and many terrifying ghost weapons descended more and more frequently. I became more and more powerless, and could only watch many innocent people die tragically. 2 years ago, I accidentally discovered that the Great Qin Kingdom was destroyed, and the forbidden technique of isolating the world was strengthened, so I excitedly investigated. Finally, I found that the root cause of the destruction of the Great Qin was in the Xianfeng continent, so I followed it all the way here. Liu Yan whispered. No wonder. Then you should know about the battle of destroying the heavens. Qin Yang asked. Well, I entered the forbidden land of Desolate Moon for this. Liu Yan said in a deep voice. It seems that you have investigated a lot of things. Qin Yang smiled. The more you know, you may be more desperate. Liu Yan sighed helplessly. Don't be so desperate. In the ancient times when the immortals and Buddhas disappeared, didn't the human race also gather many masters to launch the battle of destroying the heavens and completely annihilate the void ghosts? We may not be worse than our predecessors. Qin Yang comforted. At this time, suddenly, a terrifying roar came from the depths of the ruins. Something's going on. Let's go check it out first. Qin Yang said calmly. Liu Yan nodded. The two men and the cow immediately headed in the direction of the roar. Deep in the palace ruins was a dark square. A stone statue of a terrifying monster stood in the center. This ghost was more than 3 meters tall, with a ferocious and hideous face and sharp mouth pits with cracks on both sides. More than a dozen grey giant snakes grew from its back, wrapping around its body. It was ferocious and terrifying. There was also a dark long sword inserted in the chest of the stone statue. When Qin Yang, Liu Yan and King Niu arrived, dozens of people had already gathered around the stone statue. It seems that this magic sword killed the stone statue. The magic sword suddenly became powerful before. Could it be because the spiritual energy has revived and the stone statue wants to revive? It's possible. We all heard that roar just now. Everyone looked at the stone statue with fear and uncertainty. No one dared to act rashly. So many people. Qin Yang muttered. Among the dozens of people, there was a group that was closest to the stone statue. They were wearing clothes with a volcano mark embroidered on them. They were from the Yanshan sect, which was a first-class force in the Xianfeng continent. The burly man in the lead was a martial saint, with a fiery gaze, constantly observing the stone statue. Or rather, his eyes mostly fell on the magic sword. This was a magic sword from ancient times, and it could kill a terrifying ghost with great power. Even though he didn't use his sword, he still had a strong interest in this magic sword. Yanzin, you Yanshan sect don't use swords. Why are you staring at this sword? An old man with a knife on his back squeezed out with a dozen people. Old man Zhao, don't you Jinhu sect also use knives? When did you change to knives? The burly man said disdainfully. Haha, my swordsmanship has long reached the realm of the gods. In my eyes, a sword is a knife, and a knife is a sword. There is no difference. Zhao who laughed. Really? I have also cultivated my palm skills to the level of spiritual enlightenment. My hands are like swords, and swords are like hands. Yanzin naturally would not believe such nonsense and said sarcastically, in fact, to put it bluntly, as long as they get this magic sword, it is not impossible to let them change to sword skills. Then let's see who has the strength. Zhao Hu narrowed his eyes. This sword. You can't move. Liu Yan's figure suddenly appeared in front of the terrifying stone statue. Who are you? Yanzin sneered. You want to stop me as a mere spiritual master? Are you trying to take this magic sword for yourself? Zhao Hu said disdainfully. No. Once this sword is pulled out, this stone statue will probably revive immediately. So, you can't touch this sword. Liu Yan said lightly. HMPH. Even if the stone statue is resurrected, I can kill it. Yanzin said confidently. You want to kill a ghost that even this magic sword can't suppress? I think you are looking for death. Liu Yan retorted unceremoniously. You. Yanzin was furious, just as he was about to attack. Amitabha. This donor is right. This sword cannot be moved. Chapter 328 Resurgence. This Buddhist chant made Yanzin, who was about to make an accurate move, suddenly stop his action. Qin Yang was also slightly stunned and looked back. He saw an old monk with white eyebrows and a dozen monks coming out. Jai Temple. Old monk with white eyebrows. As soon as this old monk appeared, even though he had a kind temperament, he shocked the whole audience. Even Yanzin, who had a hot temper, lost his temper instantly. Qin Yang carefully sensed the aura of the old monk with white eyebrows and was surprised in his heart. This old guy, I'm afraid he has reached the realm of Tangshan Washan, the third realm of Washan. He has only reached the realm of sensing Washan. Tangshan Washan is a person who is only one step away from ascending to heaven. Only a sect holy place like Jai Temple can produce such a terrifying monster. Otherwise, Yanzin would not be so afraid. Master White Eyebrow, do you have thoughts about this sword? Zhao Hu asked tentatively. If the old monk with white eyebrows really had thoughts about this sword, he could only give up. I have no idea about this sword. I came here this time to completely suppress this ghost seed. The white-browed old monk clasped his hands together. What? This statue is actually a ghost seed. Someone exclaimed. No wonder it didn't die completely after being pierced by the magic sword. I'm afraid that in ancient times, this was still a complete ghost seed. A complete ghost seed. That's something that only a warrior who has ascended to heaven can deal with. A burst of horror sounded in the crowd. Soon. Except for the warriors of Yanshan sect and Jinhuman, they all subconsciously stayed away from this terrifying stone statue. Amitabha. So this old monk wants to completely destroy this ghost seed before it can revive. The white-browed old monk said lightly. I'm willing to lend a hand to the master. Liu Yan volunteered. Thank you, donor. The white-browed old monk seemed to admire Liu Yan and smiled. Master, I will also lend a hand to you. Yanzin also spoke at this time. The same goes for my Jinhuman. Zhao Hu was not to be outdone. If someone else said they were not interested in the magic sword, they would not believe it. But the white-browed monk was different. This old monk had a very good reputation in the martial arts world and never lied. Since he said he didn't want it, it was still possible to get the magic sword. So in this situation, Yanzin and Zhao Hu were naturally reluctant to leave. There may be a fierce battle later. If any of you don't want to take risks, please leave first, lest you lose your life in vain. The white-browed monk clasped his hands together. His words really persuaded many second-rate forces and some lone wolves to leave, and only 7 or 8 people were left. Qin Yang was one of them. As for the people who stayed, the white-browed monk didn't say much. Set up the formation. He shouted. The monks following him instantly set up a mysterious formation and surrounded the hideous stone statue. This is the great demon subduing formation of the Jai Temple. These monks are all at the Tangshan realm. After forming this great demon subduing formation, they can even compete with the Dharmakaya martial saint. A man who looked like a scholar seemed to be showing off his knowledge and talked non-stop. Qin Yang stood not far away and heard it clearly. The disciples of Yanshan sect and Jinhu sect also formed their own large formations. This large formation may not be as powerful as the great demon subduing formation, but it can also exert the power of the sensing martial saint. The old monk with white eyebrows saw that everything was ready and wanted to start subduing demons. He came to the hideous and terrifying stone statue and put his hands together. "Do you want to pass away yourself, or do you want me to help you?" The old monk with white eyebrows began to emit white light. A bright Buddha with burning flames appeared behind him. In an instant, the originally dark ruins suddenly became bright. The hideous stone statue seemed to be burned by the light emitted by the old monk with white eyebrows, and some charred black appeared on the surface. Then, a drop of dark red blood fell from the hideous stone statue. In an instant, this 3-meter tall terrifying stone statue suddenly came to life. A dozen black pythons growing from its back danced wildly and kept roaring. The hideous mouth of this terrifying monster kept roaring in pain, and the magic sword inserted into its chest was also emitting white light, making it extremely painful. "I am Snake Demon." This terrifying monster actually knew ancient language and roared loudly. Qin Yang barely understood some of it. The next moment, the snake demon suddenly stretched out his hands, grabbed the 2 python heads on his body, and exerted force fiercely. Snap! The 2 pythons were suddenly pulled out of its spine, and the flesh and blood melted instantly, turning into 2 rotten and dark scimitars. The Danta palm. The next moment, the white-browed old monk appeared in front of the snake demon. His entire right arm was knotted with muscles and wrapped with flames, and he hit the snake demon fiercely. Swish, swish. 2 dark and rotten blades intertwined and chopped out. Boom. The light instantly turned into a terrifying airwave and spread. The white-browed old monk was actually chopped away by the snake demon. You know, this is a demon with a magic sword stuck in its chest. Qin Yang, who was watching the show on the side, frowned slightly. Now the strange aura emitted by the snake demon is too huge, making people feel cold all over, and their skin even feels slippery. It seems that there are many poisonous snakes crawling on their bodies. Qin Yang's mind is firm, knowing that it is just an illusion caused by the contamination of the other party's aura. But others don't know. The scholar who was still talking freely just now kept making strange wailing sounds. "Snakes. There are so many snakes on my body. Come and save me." After a while, the scholar took his weapon, which was an iron fan, and whipped himself madly. "Damn snakes. I'm going to whip you to death. Ha ha ha, all of you die." In this madness, the scholar was about to be whipped to death by his own iron fan. Bang! Qin Yang appeared beside him and knocked him out with 1 punch. In addition to the scholar, there were several other people in the same situation. Qin Yang could only attack again and knock them all out. Boom. On the other side, the white-browed monk also fought with the snake demon again. This time, he turned into a giant nearly 3 meters tall, with flames all over his body and knotted muscles. From a distance, it seemed as if a giant Buddha of flames was waving his flesh palms, trying to kill the snake demon species. The white-browed monk in this form was much more terrifying and could block the snake demon species head-on. "Is this the Dharma body?" Qin Yang murmured to himself. After reaching the Dharma body martial saint realm, the warrior can bring the power of heaven and earth into the body and gain supreme power. This power will cause a huge change in the body shape, so it is called the Dharma body realm. As a strong man suspected of being a Tangshan martial saint, the white-browed old monk can naturally use this Dharma body magical power. The monks of Jai Temple also came to support at this time. They formed a demon-suppressing formation and kept sweeping and hitting with iron rods in their hands. Yanzin and Zhao, who also led their men to rush towards the snake demon. For a while, the snake demon was surrounded and beaten, but it still did not fall. 2 dark curved swords slashed out vicious blade lights, constantly trying to suppress the white-browed old monk. The big python extending from its back kept entangled with the monks of Jai Temple, Yanzin, Zhao and others. Chapter 329 Terrible. In the dark palace ruins, the snake demon looked down upon the surroundings like a great demon god, fighting fiercely with the heroes. Whoosh! Liu Yan, who had been watching secretly, finally made his move. The greenwood sword shot out in the air, exhaling sword energy, and stabbed into the eyes of the snake demon. With a clang, the snake demon's eyeballs also turned into a python, and fiercely collided with the greenwood sword. "Sword, I hate swords," the snake demon roared. Liu Yan frowned slightly, and cast a spell to call back the greenwood sword. The next moment, a dark big hand suddenly grabbed the green light, crushed it, and swallowed it in 1 gulp. Liu Yan was immediately backlashed and vomited blood. The next moment, The snake demon cut the white-browed old monk back with a knife and strode towards Liu Yan. The bloody scimitar in his hand slashed down, and the air let out a cold roar. Liu Yan's figure flashed back. A thick python extending from the back of the snake demon seemed to have predicted Liu Yan's position, bared its fangs, and bit him in advance. At the critical moment, a figure swept across. A platinum dragon emerged in the void, holding a broken knife in its mouth, bursting with violent and cruel aura. Puff! The python screamed, and was cut in two by the platinum knife. The snake demon's eyes were instantly focused on the figure, and the whole body suddenly burst out with a gloomy and twisted aura. This aura seemed invisible, but it was full of power to pollute the soul. For a while, even martial saints like Yanzin and Zhao were affected. Not to mention their disciples. Their eyes flashed with fear and panic, and some even swung their knives at their companions frantically. For a while, the scene was instantly in chaos, and the formation formed was also broken without attack. But Qin Yang's aura was surging, and he turned into a black tortoise phantom with a dragon head, a turtle body, and a snake tail. Hualala, as soon as this black tortoise phantom appeared, it exuded the breath of the endless deep sea, constantly resisting the twisted power emitted by the snake demon. Disgusting key. The snake demon suddenly inserted two bloody scimitars into the soil. For a moment, the nearby scene seemed to be polluted. The ground exuded a gloomy and evil breath, and many poisonous substances rose up. Hissing intensive roars sounded from deep underground. One after another giant snakes suddenly stretched out from the ground and madly attacked the living people here. For a moment, this place seemed to have turned into a snake cave. The great demon suppressing formation formed by the monks of Jai Temple suffered the greatest pressure. Dozens of giant snakes attacked madly, and they could only defend first. The people of Yanshan sect and Jinhuman lost their formation, and the fight with the giant snakes became more tragic. Deal with the snake demon first. Yanzin roared. For a moment, Qin Yang, the white-browed old monk, Zhao, and Yanzin rushed towards the snake demon. Boom. The snake demon once again pulled out the python extending from his back, turned it into a bloody scimitar, and fought with several people. His head even extended strangely, baring his fangs and attacking crazily. The white-browed old monk was wrapped in white flames, like a great Buddha descending, and punched the snake demon with charred palm prints. Yanzin's blood was like a volcanic eruption, and he punched with flaming fists. Zhao held a golden knife, and the knife was sharp, like a tiger's claws attacking. Qin Yang also condensed the basalt knife, and displayed the Shura blood sea. The dense knife light filled the void, trying to destroy the snake demon. Facing the siege of 4 people, the snake demon waved the bloody scimitar, and continued to fight. Even though it was outnumbered, its physique was too strong, and no matter how it attacked it, it seemed to have little effect. Void snake bite. Dense black air suddenly floated on the snake demon. These black hair twisted and mixed in the void, creating a dark and terrifying feeling that made one's scalp numb. The next moment, a pair of dark red vertical pupils emerged from the black fog. It was as if a terrifying giant snake was hidden in the black fog, staring at the world. Zhao was stared at by the dark red vertical pupils. In an instant, he felt that countless poisonous snakes were crawling on his body, and his mind was terribly polluted. Fake. All fake. Zhao roared wildly, and swung his knife fiercely, to cut the snake demon. With a clang, Yanzin reacted quickly, urging the vitality in his body, and the whole arm appeared red flames, and he punched out an explosive punch. Boom. The knife and fist collided, and the fire burst out. Zhao, your mind is polluted. Yanzin roared wildly, trying to wake Zhao up. But at this time, in the black fog in the air, the dark red snake pupils flashed again. Zhao's eyes even bleed. I don't know. You are all snake demons. The white-browed old monk put his hands together. Infinite light. A powerful white flame Buddha light bloomed from the white-browed old monk. Zhao's deceived mind finally regained some clarity. Puff. At this moment, the ground where Zhao was suddenly sank in. A dark giant snake jumped out from the depths of the ground, opened its mouth, and swallowed Zhao in. Desolate sea, dead sea floating and sinking. Qin Yang's face was calm, and his body rushed into the air like a thunderbolt, slashing out a knife light full of death. Puff. The black fog was instantly shattered by the knife light. Bidao Zenwu's vitality spread, instantly annihilating the black fog. The next moment, the snake demon suddenly sprayed out a mouthful of poisonous fog. Yan Xin didn't have time to dodge and burst out the red flame vitality in his body, trying to burn the poisonous fog. But he underestimated the toxicity of this group of poisonous fog. Sizzle, the red flames continued to burn the poisonous fog. But these poisonous mists shot out dense black dots. These black dots were so fast that they landed directly on Yan Xin's face. These black dots turned out to be tiny snakes, biting Yan Xin's flesh and blood frantically. In the blink of an eye, Yan Xin's flesh and blood were eaten clean by these tiny snakes and turned into a pile of dry bones. This is the horror of the ghost species. Even though it has been suppressed for countless years, even though there is a magic sword stuck in its chest, it killed 2 martial saints with just a wave of its hand. Interesting. Qin Yang grinned. He directly used the Wuji spirit body. His body swelled, and terrifying blue veins appeared in his muscles. The black tortoise sword slashed out fiercely. The white-browed old monk also waved his palms and continuously shot out white flame Buddha light. The snake demon species roared, and the 2 bloody scimitars intertwined thousands of bloodlights and slashed towards Qin Yang and the white-browed old monk. It can be said that the war has just begun from this moment. Countless Buddha flames were dispersed. The knife light spread and shot in the void. The sky was filled with the sound of snakes screaming and roaring, and groups of black air were chopped into pieces. The entire palace ruins were completely destroyed. Qin Yang became more and more excited as he fought, and his blood and ki burst out wildly. The black tortoise knife chopped the snake demon species continuously. The knife condensed with Bidao Zenwu's vitality was not that hard, and it broke and exploded directly. The next moment, Qin Yang instantly burst out with a terrible majesty, as if a god had descended to the world. His right fist was surrounded by Bidao Zenwu's vitality, and it was like a star falling from the sky, and it hit the snake demon species hard. Dragon falling, white star falling into the sea. Boom. The moment this punch hit the snake demon species, the entire palace ruins shook. A huge hole was punched in the chest of the snake demon species, and its body shook wildly. Great demon subduing palm. The white-browed old monk took this opportunity to take action directly, and a Buddha's palm hit the snake demon species forehead heavily. Chapter 330, Desolate Moon. Bang. The snake demon species suffered another heavy blow, and its body retreated more than 10 steps. Crazy snake dance. The snake demon species screamed in pain. The next moment, the giant snake behind him became extremely manic and bit the white-browed monk madly. Ding ding ding, the white-browed old monk clasped his hands together, and the white flame vaguely formed a white bell that enveloped him. The violent attacks of those giant snakes were all blocked by the white bell. Qin Yang was about to take action, but he felt some slight movement on the ground. Want to plot against me? Qin Yang suddenly raised his right leg and stomped hard on the ground. Dragon Elephant 10 million heavy kicks. Boom. When he trampled on the ground, the terrifying power spread deep underground. The giant snake that was about to attack Qin Yang was instantly crushed into blood by this huge force. And Qin Yang also relied on this trampling force to soar into the sky. His arms quickly released the Bidao Zenwu Yuan Qi, which condensed into a Zuanwu sword. A cold killing intent instantly enveloped the snake demon. Desolate sea, dark sea moment. A cold knife light bloomed in the air. This is an illusion. When the naked eye saw this cold knife light, it actually fell on itself. This is the weirdness of dark sea moment. The snake demon species obviously had never seen such a situation before. Puff. The snake demon species itself had suffered many severe injuries from Qin Yang and the white-browed old monk. Its body was ravaged by the golden flame Buddha light and Bidao Zenwu's vitality. It was already riddled with holes, and was far less tough than before. This time, it was chopped down by Qin Yang. The body of the snake demon species could not bear it at all, and was directly split into 2. But the ghost species is the ghost species. The vitality of this kind of existence is too abnormal. Even though Qin Yang split it into 2 halves, it melted into a more twisted object. It was like a massive flesh tumor, with dozens of dark snakes entangled together, chaotic and twisted. Clang. At this moment, a ray of sword sound suddenly sounded in this massive flesh tumor. Qin Yang, who was about to charge, suddenly stopped. He felt a terrifying sword intent. This sword intent even made his heart palpitate. A ball of white light suddenly appeared in the void, emitting a destructive sword intent. The next moment, this ball of white light suddenly turned into a white sky sword, flashing many mysterious runes, with supreme power, falling from the sky, and fiercely inserted into the tumor. No sword. The snake demon species let out a terrifying roar, with a puff. The next moment, countless sword energy spread in the ruins of the palace. The sword energy was so sharp that even Qin Yang could only dodge temporarily. When the sword energy disappeared, I saw that the earth was like a chessboard, covered with dense lines. However, these lines were not as regular as the chessboard, and were extremely messy. As for the snake demon species, it had long been annihilated by the sword intent just now. Where is the sword? Qin Yang glanced at it and finally smiled. Amitabha. Thank you for your help this time. Otherwise, I really can't suppress this snake demon species by myself. The white-browed old monk brought all the monks to Qin Yang to thank him. Master, you are too polite. Even if I didn't show up, that magic sword is enough to kill that ghost species. Qin Yang smiled. Not enough if the donor hadn't broken the body of the snake demon species. The remaining power of the magic sword is not enough to kill the snake demon species. The white-browed old monk shook his head. Master, do you know where this snake demon species came from? Why did this palace ruin appear? Qin Yang asked curiously. The donor should be from the outside world. The white-browed old monk didn't answer, but asked first. My name is Qin Yang, from Kunshan continent. Qin Yang said softly. No wonder the donor doesn't know this is actually not a secret. The white-browed monk clasped his hands together and told Qin Yang the origin of this ruined palace. In the mythological era, the immortals and Buddhas arranged a forbidden technique to isolate the heaven and earth so that the evil spirits of the void could not descend. It's just that this forbidden technique was used for the first time. Even though the immortals and Buddhas have deduced it many times, there is still a loophole. This loophole was noticed by the evil spirits of the void, and another seed descended through the loophole. Qin Yang was slightly surprised when he heard this. What is this nether seed? Ghost seed. It's just the most basic existence of the void. Above the ghost seed is the nether seed. The existence of this nether seed is comparable to that of immortals and Buddhas, and even the warriors who have ascended to heaven cannot contend with it. So in ancient times, the arrival of a nether seed was a devastating blow to the human race at that time. What's more, in addition to a nether seed, there are many ghost seeds that descended together. And this nether seed descended in the Xianfeng continent. At that time, this nether seed called himself the Hades, and founded the terrifying force of the nether heaven gate in the desolate moon forbidden land. Countless people were polluted by the Hades, and turned into believers. They built palaces for them, and chanted scriptures day and night. At that time, many sects in Xianfeng continent also suffered a major blow, and were constantly destroyed by Mengshenmen. When it was about to be destroyed, a person with the blood of immortals and Buddhas broke through the limit of ascension, and reached the realm of immortals and Buddhas. This is the first strong man who broke through the shackles of ascension, and reached the realm of immortals and Buddhas after the end of the mythological era. It was also this strong man who brought a ray of light to the human race, which was originally shrouded in darkness. The white-browed old monk said softly. Someone actually broke through to the realm of immortals and Buddhas? Qin Yang looked horrified. He always thought that since the mythological era, no one should have broken through to the realm of immortals and Buddhas. The world has long forgotten the name of that strong man, and only knows that his name is Huang Yuxin. This Huang Yu forbidden land is named after this strong man. When Huang Yuxin broke through the realm of immortals and Buddhas, he became the leader of the human race. The strongest people from all continents rushed to Xianfeng continent, and followed Huang Yuxin into the Mengshenmen. This is the battle to destroy the sky, the white-browed old monk said in a deep voice. Qin Yang finally knew the origin of the battle to destroy the sky. It turned out that the so-called destruction of the sky was actually the destruction of the Mengshen Gate. The battle to destroy the sky also represents the end of the ancient times. No one knows the result of that battle. We only know that after that battle, the ghost species completely disappeared, and the blood of immortals and Buddhas and the blood of monsters gradually disappeared. So some people speculated it was the desolate moon immortal who perfected this forbidden technique to isolate the heaven and earth. But no living person has ever walked out of the desolate moon forbidden land, and it has not been confirmed. The white-browed old monk told Qin Yang a lot of things. Qin Yang was thoughtful. After the white-browed old monk's explanation, he finally understood the reason for the battle, to destroy the sky that year. Now the ghost species has been destroyed. The old monk will not stay. Donor, remember to be careful. The white-browed old monk did not stay any longer and left with the monks. It seemed that even he had overlooked the location of the magic sword. Let's go, Qin Yang said to Liu Yun. There was no point in staying in the ruins of the palace. Liu Yun originally looked a little confused, and when he heard Qin Yang calling, he nodded gently. The two of them, and King Niu who was hiding nearby, quickly left. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 331 Encounter. From the moment the battle began, Qin Yang had the green ox hide. For this level of battle, the green ox's strength was still a little lacking. Even though the green ox's bloodline was magical, it had awakened not long ago, and its strength was equivalent to that of a half-step martial saint. If Qin Yang got involved later, he might have to waste time saving it. It would be better to let it hide, so that it would not become a burden. After the two men and the ox quickly left the ruins, they quickly climbed up the mountain wall and soon climbed to the top of the mountain. I didn't expect that your strength could actually deal with the ghost species. After Liu Yun came to a safe place, he finally couldn't help but exclaimed. When he was in Yang Ning's house city, he knew that Qin Yang was very strong. After not seeing him for a while, he should have become stronger. But Liu Yun never thought that Qin Yang's strength had grown to this point. Even the revived ghost species could cut it in half. The ghost species was suppressed by the magic sword and its strength was restricted too much. Besides, there is also a white-browed old monk, which is nothing. Qin Yang shook his head. I fought with that snake demon, and the King Mu sword couldn't even penetrate its skin, and it was swallowed in one gulp. I know how strong this snake demon is. Liu Yun said with a smile. Not enough. If it was a fully revived ghost species, I wouldn't be a match for it. Besides, you just heard that above the ghost species, there is even the underworld species. That's a terrifying thing that makes immortals and Buddhas disappear. Qin Yang said softly. We still need to work hard. Liu Yun nodded. Then you work hard. Maybe you can surpass me. Qin Yang said with a smile. How can it be that easy? Liu Yun also smiled. Just as the two were going down the mountain, another group of people happened to come over. Brother Qin? What a coincidence. Guannan, the young master of the White Sword sect, was a little surprised when he saw Qin Yang. It's really a coincidence. Qin Yang smiled. Just when I was climbing the mountain, I felt the ground shaking. Brother Qin just came up from below. Do you know what happened? Guannan asked with a smile on his face. I just got scared by the noise, and I came up in a hurry, because I was afraid of something happening. Qin Yang said calmly. That's it. Guannan looked at Qin Yang for a few times. With Qin Yang's strength, how could he be easily scared away by the noise? The other party was obviously lying. But fearing Qin Yang's strength, Guannan pretended to believe him and smiled. Then I'd better go down and take a look myself. Just as the two sides passed by, the sword on Guannan's back suddenly trembled. Not only him, but the long swords carried by the disciples of the White Sword sect also trembled. Qin Yang looked normal, as if he didn't notice the abnormality. But Guannan stopped and turned to look at Qin Yang, Liu Yun, and the big blue bull. Wait a minute. Guannan narrowed his eyes. His eyes did not fall on Qin Yang, but on Liu Yun. Brother Qin, your friend seems to have obtained some extraordinary treasure down there. Guannan said softly. The next moment, the figures of the people from the White Sword sect flashed and surrounded Qin Yang and the others. When the green ox saw this, its hooves began to dig holes. It couldn't afford to offend the snake demon species, but these people were different. A terrible evil spirit rose from the green ox. Liu Yun frowned slightly. He knew that it was because he didn't hide the aura that caused this abnormal movement. I wanted to let you go. Why? Qin Yang shook his head helplessly. Brother Qin, what do you mean? Guannan was slightly stunned. Boom. Qin Yang turned into a mad thunder and appeared in front of Guan Nan in an instant. His entire right arm swelled, and the blue veins were like a raging python, which burst his clothes and hit him with an immeasurable heavy whip. Guan Nan had a warning in his heart, but Qin Yang's explosive power was beyond his expectations. The arm that pulled out was fierce and unmatched, squeezing and breaking the air, as if it could even break the mountain. Oops. Guan Nan didn't care about hiding his cultivation at this moment, and burst out with a terrible sword intent. In the eyes of outsiders, he, the young master of the sect, is a half-step martial saint. But in fact, with the recovery of spiritual energy and a little luck, he has already broken through to the martial saint. It's just that Guan Nan is meticulous and deliberately hides this news. Until today, he was forced by Qin Yang and finally couldn't hide it anymore. Guan Nan didn't even draw his sword, but stretched out his sword finger, flashing white light, and poked Qin Yang's eyes. He was forcing Qin Yang to retreat. Quick reaction. Qin Yang's arm slammed Guan Nan's wrist. With a snap, the palm and bones were directly broken. Guan Nan screamed, but did not stop. His left hand suddenly grabbed the long sword behind him, and slashed with the sword. Clang. Qin Yang casually swung his left arm. With a clang, the long sword was directly shaken away by the huge force of his arm. Divine power to suppress the sea. The next moment, Qin Yang punched out like a god. A terrifying divine power instantly enveloped Guan Nan, shocking his heart. No. Guan Nan roared unwillingly. Bang. The next moment, Qin Yang's fist, with divine power, smashed Guan Nan's body. Countless flesh and blood splashed on the faces of many Beijianmen disciples. Boom. When King Niu saw Qin Yang taking action, he could not bear it, and turned into a 3-meter tall monster, and rushed towards the Beijianmen disciples. Monster, run. Seeing King Niu's ferocious and huge body, the Beijianmen disciples were frightened and fled madly. King Niu did not want to let it go. He exerted force with his 4 hooves, and the terrible charging force crushed and trampled the disciples one by one. Clang. A slight sword sound suddenly came from the void. An old man quietly appeared behind Qin Yang, and swung his sword. This stab was simple, but full of killing intent. This was a fatal sword. Without thousands of sword swings, without tens of thousands of lives, this sword could not be stabbed. The moment when the tip of the sword was about to poke Qin Yang suddenly turned around. His right hand had already condensed a black tortoise sword. The moment he turned around, a cold blade suddenly slashed out. Puff. 2 figures crossed. The Zuanwu sword in Qin Yang's hand suddenly turned into vitality and dissipated. Faster than me after all, he is old. The elder of the White Sword sect said helplessly. Indeed. When people get old, their swords are slower. Qin Yang smiled and nodded. The next moment, a bloodline appeared between the eyebrows of the elder of the White Sword sect, and his body suddenly split into 2 halves. After killing this man, Qin Yang never made a move again. After more than 10 breaths, all the disciples of the White Sword sect were completely trampled and hit to death by the Green Bull. This time I have implicated Brother Qin. Liu Yun said helplessly. It doesn't matter. I have had a grudge with them for a long time. This time I just want to understand the grudges. Qin Yang smiled. Where are you going next, Brother Qin? Liu Yun asked again. I just heard what the White Eyebrow Monk said. I'm more interested in this desolate moon forbidden land, so I will naturally go deeper. Qin Yang smiled. I have the same idea as Brother Qin. Even though Liu Yun got the opportunity, he was not in a hurry to leave. Chapter 332 Axe. The 2 of them traveled together, and they also had to bring a blue ox. After leaving this mountain range, they continued to head towards the desolate moon forbidden land. Along the way, they would also encounter some strange events, or be attacked by evil spirits. Even Qin Yang didn't need to take action. Liu Yun could take action to solve it. Moreover, Liu Yun could now hide the aura in his body, and no longer cause abnormal movements. Another dead person. Liu Yun looked at the several broken corpses on the ground and shook his head slightly. He had seen too many corpses along the way. In a place like the desolate moon forbidden land, danger is everywhere, and even a martial saint would be terrified. Entering a place like this, you should have thought about it a long time ago. Qin Yang shook his head slightly. The 2 of them were already accustomed to corpses, and they did not stop, and continued to move forward. Not long after, A huge city appeared in their eyes. It was a grey and gloomy giant city, which looked hideous and terrifying from a distance. Even the ears seemed to hear the cries of some resentful souls. These sounds were not real, but the dark aura emitted by the giant city was too huge and affected them. Did the Mention Gate build a city at that time? Liu Yan was a little surprised. If they could even build a palace, it's normal to build a city. It should be a dead city now. Qin Yang said softly. I wonder how many people died in order to capture this city? Liu Yan sighed slightly. You know, this is still the outer forbidden area, not the center of the desolate moon forbidden area at all. Go and have a look. Qin Yang was a little curious. King Niu looked at the city, and a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. Half an incense stick later, they finally arrived at this dark giant city, and stepped into it. Inside the giant city, the buildings were still that absurd and gloomy, sharp, and slender style. But most of the buildings have collapsed. The way this building collapsed seems to have experienced a violent shaking, just like an earthquake. Liu Yan said softly. It's a bit like who knows which spiritual master used some kind of Taoist magic to destroy this city. Qin Yang smiled. It's possible. Liu Yan nodded gently. In ancient times, spiritual energy was abundant, and spiritual masters were not as scarce as they are now. While the two were talking, another team rushed in. They looked at Qin Yang and Liu Yan warily. It had been a short time since they entered the desolate moon forbidden land. Those who survived naturally had great abilities. It was normal for them to be wary of each other. However, after realizing that Qin Yang had no ill intentions, the leader of the team hurriedly led his men away, as if he was rushing to go somewhere. So anxious. Is there any treasure ahead? Qin Yang became interested. There are many opportunities in this desolate moon forbidden land, especially the things left by the strong men in ancient times. At this moment, King Niu suddenly called out. What's going on? Qin Yang asked curiously. Then, a thought came into Qin Yang's mind. Is there a breath you feel close to in there? Qin Yang was slightly stunned. King Niu nodded quickly. This is a desolate moon forbidden land. Are you sure your mind is not blinded? Qin Yang frowned. King Niu and the desolate moon forbidden land. These two obviously cannot have any relationship. After hearing what Qin Yang said, King Niu also reacted. He felt that what Qin Yang said might make sense. Was he really deceived by some ghost things and then had an illusion? But Liu Yan said at this time, not necessarily. Brother King Niu has the blood of monsters in his body. As far as I know, many big monsters also participated in the battle to destroy the sky. Because the Dingshan continent in the far distance is a land dominated by many big monsters. At that time, many big monsters were sent over. Maybe there is Brother King Niu's ancestor. Qin Yang heard this and said to King Niu, feel it again. Is that feeling true or false? As he said that, he spread his own aura out. In this way, some yin and evil spirits can be dispelled. King Niu closed his eyes, felt it for a while, and sent a thought to Qin Yang. It was sure that the feeling was real, not blinded by the mind. So this city may really have your ancestors. Qin Yang said softly. King Niu nodded hurriedly, and then looked into the depths of the city. It became restless, and its four hooves kept stomping on the spot. If Qin Yang hadn't been watching, it would have rushed over to take a look. Is it such a coincidence? Then go and take a look. Qin Yang also wanted to see what this legendary monster looked like. Boom. Hearing this, the blue bull rushed over impatiently. This guy Qin Yang shook his head and chased after him. The center of the dark giant city was a pile of broken tiles and rubble. The earth showed an extremely terrifying crack, and the cracks that were denser than spider webs continued to spread towards the city, which was shocking to see. All this, just because of an axe. A huge black and rough stone axe. The axe blade was inserted diagonally into the ground. Before getting close, I felt a wild and fierce breath coming. This axe has a murderous aura. Even after so many years, the bloody aura is still so strong. It is definitely a fierce weapon. In addition to the murderous aura, there is also a wild aura. I wonder which powerful person in ancient times used this weapon. Many sect teams surrounded the axe, their eyes flashing with greed. This axe is definitely a divine weapon. No matter who it is, they want to get it. I feel that this axe may have landed here accidentally. Look at the angle of the axe. I feel that the axe was hit by someone when the powerful person was fighting. Then it flew for dozens of miles and landed in the center of this city. Because the impact force was too terrifying, it instantly triggered an earthquake, causing most of the buildings in the city to be damaged. A spiritual master analyzed. His words were recognized by many people. Since you are all just watching, then I won't be polite. A fat man suddenly squeezed out of the crowd and walked towards the giant axe. This fat man was more than 2 meters tall, carrying a giant axe on his back, and looked extremely sturdy. It's him. Ghost Head Axe Zao. This man is a Tangxuan realm warrior who has practiced hard skills and has good strength. Someone recognized the fat man and said softly, I want to see if this man can pick up this stone axe. This man is so reckless, I'm afraid he will suffer a great loss. The stone axe has been discovered for a long time, but no one dared to approach it because they were afraid of any danger. Everyone's eyes fell on the fat man. They all wanted to see this fat man lift up the black stone axe. The fat man Zao ran the body protection Kigang and soon came to the giant axe. He encouraged his own blood and vitality to the extreme and quickly grasped the handle of the black stone axe with both hands. But an invisible aura suddenly emanated from the black stone axe. Chapter 333 Inheritance. Zao was naturally infected by the invisible ki in an instant, and his whole body was shaken. The next moment, his body was like being ground by an invisible millstone, slowly turning into blood. Starting from the head, then the chest and abdomen, a pile of blood fell to the ground. This scene made the scalps of the onlookers numb. Zao is not only a master of Tangxuan realm, but also a master of hard kicking. His physique is much stronger than that of a normal master of Tangxuan realm. But even with this physique, he was cut into minced meat by the ki emitted by the stone axe. This pitch black stone axe is so scary. I'm afraid that, even if the martial saint takes it, he will not be able to escape. Fortunately, Zao is here to test it for me. I really wanted to try it just now. The many warriors watching were all shocked. Who would have thought that Zao couldn't hold on for a second? For a while, no one dared to get close to the pitch black stone axe, for fear of being affected. Boom. At this moment, the earth shook. What's going on? Is this giant axe showing its power? No. It seems that some huge monster is attacking us. Someone said in horror. The next moment, a 3-meter tall blue bull with terrifyingly tangled muscles rushed over like a high-speed train. Its momentum was so terrifying that all the building ruins along the way were crushed and smashed. Monster beast. There are actually monster beasts in this desolate moon forbidden land. Why do I think this blue bull looks familiar? This monster beast seems to be heading for the giant axe. Everyone shouted. A second-rate sect team was blocking the blue bull's charge path. Retreat. The leader said in a hurry. The power of the blue bull's charge was too terrifying, and he didn't dare to resist it. Otherwise, his body would be smashed. The disciples behind him quickly stepped aside and made way. This monster really doesn't know how to live or die. Let it die. Sure enough, monsters don't even need to use their brains. Everyone looked at the young man who rushed towards the pitch black stone axe with a sneer on their faces. They seemed to be able to see the scene where the blue bull turned into blood after touching the pitch black stone axe. As if sensing the approach of the blue bull, the stone axe actually trembled and burst out with a terrifying demonic aura. This guy seems to have angered the stone axe. Someone gloated. But the next second, this person was dumbfounded. The blue bull was not ground into blood by the aura emitted by the pitch black stone axe. It came to the pitch black stone axe, knelt down on all 4 hooves, and knelt down with its huge bull head in front of the pitch black stone axe. Buzz buzz buzz, the pitch black stone axe shook even more violently. The next moment, a black light shot out from the pitch black stone axe and fell on the blue bull. For a moment, the huge body of the blue bull trembled wildly and kept roaring. What's going on? No. This bull monster may have some connection with this stone axe. It is receiving the inheritance of the stone axe. Someone exclaimed. Humph, I won't let this stone axe be taken away by the bull monster. The leader of a second-rate sect sneered. He took out a dart with a deadly poison and was about to throw it at the green bull. Bang. The next moment, his head was crushed by a giant hand. This scene, it shocked everyone. As the body of the sect leader slowly fell, a figure appeared in everyone's eyes. I remember, when I was in Wangai City, this man was leading a green bull. Someone recognized Qin Yang and shouted in horror. He is the owner of this bull monster. Is he also a monster? It shouldn't be. Judging from the aura, it should be a human. Everyone's eyes flickered. Qin Yang walked to the front of the green bull without saying a word, turned to face everyone, and the meaning was self-evident. Boy, can you protect this bull monster by yourself? An old man sneered. He was the great elder of Qianhu sect. Qianhu sect was also a first-class force in Xi and Feng continent. Old man, you can come and try. See if I can protect it. Qin Yang smiled. Humph, why not? As the great elder of Qianhu sect, he was naturally a martial saint. The next moment, the old man held a light blue sword and stabbed Qin Yang strangely. The void was rippling like the surface of a lake. This is the unique skill of Qianhu sect, the ripple sword technique. It seems not powerful, but as the ripples spread, the power will become more terrifying. As it continued to approach Qin Yang, the power of the sword light suddenly increased, like a tide. Qin Yang did not change his face, and the rapidly flowing blood and vitality instantly supported his body. He condensed the black tortoise sword with his hands, and slashed it out. Swish! The shadow of a dragon with a broken knife in its mouth instantly appeared behind Qin Yang. The terrifying evil spirit spread out, making people's scalps numb. The swords collided. The Zuanwu sword instantly annihilated the rippling sword light. Ah! The elder of Qianhu sect screamed, and Qin Yang cut off half of his shoulder. Stop! Stop! The disciples of Qianhu sect shouted loudly, but Qin Yang seemed not to hear. The knife fell. The head of the elder of Qianhu sect flew up and fell at the feet of the disciples of Qianhu sect. For a moment, the whole place was dead silent. This is a martial saint. Just like that, Qin Yang killed him with 2 swords? Who is this person? Could it be a Dharmakaya martial saint? It's very likely. Only a Dharmakaya martial saint has such strength. Only the disciples of Qianhu sect looked at the corpse of their elder and became extremely angry. Bold lunatic. How dare you kill the great elder? We, Qianhu sect, are irreconcilable with you. Qin Yang smiled and said, if you yell again, I will make sure that no one from your Qianhu sect can leave the desolate moon forbidden land. For a moment, the faces of the Qianhu sect disciples who were still shouting changed. They wanted to reprimand Qin Yang, but they didn't dare to speak out, for fear of being killed by the other party. After all, even the great elder died under Qin Yang's knife. How could they stop the murderer? Let's go. An elder of Qianhu sect said coldly. Since they couldn't take revenge, it would be embarrassing to stay here. It would be better to leave directly. Soon, the people of Qianhu sect collected the body of the great elder and left in disgrace. You, get out of here too. I'll count to 3. If there are still people staying here, kill without mercy. Qin Yang said domineeringly. These words were too arrogant and domineering. But when Qin Yang said them, they were terrifying and deterrent. Even though there were still a few martial saints, they had no confidence in facing Qin Yang because of the experience of the great elder of Qianhu sect. In the end, the many sect teams surrounding the pitch black stone axe were actually forced back by Qin Yang alone and dispersed. Qin Yang then turned back to check on King Liu. Liu Yan quietly appeared beside Qin Yang and whispered, it seems that this stone axe should have a great connection with brother King Liu. This guy's really lucky. The desolate moon forbidden land is so big, but it can still meet this pitch black stone axe. Qin Yang said with a smile. Chapter 334 Transformation. The origin of this stone axe is not small. Even Qin Yang, standing aside, felt a sense of fear when he felt the evil spirit it exuded. Liu Yan looked at King Liu curiously. It was the first time in his life that he saw this technique inherited by the demon clan. King Liu seemed to have lost consciousness and knelt on the ground with 4 hooves. The stone axe kept emitting black light and shot into King Liu's head. Qin Yang was also watching. He found that King Liu's whole body was oozing blood, and dense blood spots kept appearing and then cracked. Then, these blood spots actually grew hard blue-black scales. This guy seems to be breaking through. Qin Yang said in surprise. It should be. Liu Yan nodded. It seems that it won't be over for a while. Qin Yang shook his head slightly. He knew. Those who left would not give up so easily. Leaving just now was just a delaying tactic. When more people are shaken, they will naturally kill back. Brother Liu, please keep an eye on King Liu for me. I'm afraid that after the fight, some villains will attack and interrupt King Niu's inheritance. Qin Yang said again. Leave it to me. Liu Yan nodded. He waved his hand casually. Strands of transparent sword intent spread out, forming a protective sword formation with King Niu as the center. Qin Yang was relieved. He knew that there might be another fierce battle next. Half an hour later, Qin Yang looked around. Strong and terrifying auras were rising from all directions. This was a demonstration and pressure on Qin Yang. But Qin Yang's character was naturally not going to give in. I didn't expect the 13 martial saints to gather so many people in a short time. Qin Yang smiled slightly. The next moment, he also burst out with a fierce and deep aura, and a black tortoise phantom appeared behind him. His aura was extremely violent, and even directly suppressed the 13 martial saints' auras. But with a series of cold snorts, the aura coming from all directions was becoming more and more terrifying and huge. These auras intertwined together, forming an extremely terrifying pressure, and the void seemed to collapse. Even Qin Yang felt the huge pressure. His body suddenly swelled, his blood and ki surged, and his clothes were torn in an instant. He condensed the Zuanwu knife in his right hand and looked around. In the dark, a series of terrifying figures emerged. There were men and women, with terrifying auras, staring at Qin Yang with a covetous look. Young man, I'll give you a chance. If you interrupt the inheritance and leave the stone axe, there is still a glimmer of hope. A hoarse voice, hunchbacked old man sneered. You don't think you can beat me with more people, do you? Qin Yang grinned. We are 13 martial saints. Even if you are a Dharmakaya martial saint, you may not be able to stop us from joining forces. The old man sneered. Really? Then try it. Qin Yang grinned, but didn't talk anymore, but flashed and rushed towards the hunchbacked old man. No one thought that Qin Yang would choose to attack first in such a situation. A cold blade light bloomed brilliantly in the void. It was cold and chilly, making people unable to help but immerse themselves in it. But the old man felt cold all over and was terrified. He did not dodge, because he knew that dodging was meaningless. He swung the crutch in his hand and smashed it forward. The smelly and vicious purple energy emerged in the crutch. It was vaguely visible that a purple centipede appeared behind the old man. Obviously, this old man is good at poison attack. But the hunchbacked old man's smash still missed. His pupils suddenly dilated, revealing a look of pain. He felt his protective energy being torn apart by the cold and sharp blade energy, and his chest hurt. Then he lost consciousness. Puff! Qin Yang stabbed into the chest of the hunchbacked old man with a knife, and suddenly lifted it up. From the chest, neck, and finally the head. It was directly cut open by the Zuanwu knife. Bold thugs. Kill him. Let's go together. Seeing the hunchbacked old man die tragically, the other martial saints all shouted angrily. But the strange thing was, no one attacked Qin Yang. Qin Yang himself was stunned for a moment. After a few breaths, these martial saints actually retreated in a tacit understanding. In other words, they ran away. These guys are really old-timers. Qin Yang did not chase them, and shook his head helplessly. They are not of the same mind. Originally, they just wanted to see if they could force you away with their large numbers. Once they saw you killed a martial saint, they were naturally afraid that they would become the next target. Liu Yan said softly. He saw at a glance that these people had their own ulterior motives and would not fight Qin Yang to the end. As long as Qin Yang's strength was indeed strong, he could kill a martial saint with one move, which played a strong deterrent role. It should be quiet now. Qin Yang nodded. With his current cultivation, only if the people from the Holy Land sect came over would they pose a threat to him. But according to what the White Eyebrow Monk said before, these sects and holy places should not come to such a place. Their goal is to go deeper into the desolate moon forbidden land, to find some traces left by the desolate moon immortal. Just as Qin Yang expected, no one appeared nearby. After a full hour, the green bull monster finally broke through successfully. With a roar, a huge demonic energy suddenly erupted on the green bull. Even Qin Yang and Liu Yan stayed a little further away. The violent demonic energy rolled up the floor tiles, making a mess. After the demonic energy passed, Qin Yang looked shocked. Even Liu Yan widened his eyes. They saw a young man more than 2 meters tall, with bulging muscles and bull horns on his head. You are the green bull. Qin Yang was a little surprised. The demon beast turned into a human. Liu Yun shook his head in disbelief. It's me, Master. The young man scratched his head embarrassedly, as if he was not used to turning into a human body. How can you turn into a human? Qin Yang couldn't help asking. He thought King Niu was just accepting the inheritance and breaking through the realm, but he didn't expect that he could also transform into a human body. The inheritance secret method in this axe contains the secret method of how to transform into a human body. I didn't expect that I would succeed after one try. King Niu explained. He was still holding the black stone axe in his hand. It seems that this stone axe is really left by your ancestor. Qin Yang nodded. Yes, this stone axe also contains a drop of blood of my ancestor. With the power of this drop of blood, I successfully broke through to the realm of fierce monsters. King Niu smiled honestly. Fierce monster. Qin Yang was slightly stunned. This is a cultivation realm of the monster race. Fierce monsters are equivalent to the martial saints of your human race. One step further is a great monster, which is equivalent to a powerful person who ascends to the sky. Liu Yun obviously has some research on monsters. Master Liu is right. King Niu nodded quickly. That's not bad. Qin Yang nodded. After King Niu got used to the human body, the three of them left the ruins of the city. I can feel a trace of my ancestor's aura with the help of this stone axe. Maybe that's where the real battle took place. King Niu put the stone axe on his back and said softly. Chapter 335 Grey Forest. The place of the great battle. Qin Yang's expression slightly moved. In ancient times, this area was ruled by the Mention Gate. The place where the battle was the most intense and terrifying should be the core area of the Mention Gate. In that area, it is possible to find some traces of the Wild Moon Immortal. King Niu, lead us according to your feeling. Qin Yang said. Follow me. King Niu nodded. He also wanted to find his ancestors. Several people crossed a plain again. An endless grey and withered forest appeared in their eyes. Every dead tree here grew strangely and twistedly. Tall, twisted, grey, dead. The endless withered forest had no trace of green, as if it was a forbidden zone for life. Are you sure you want to go through this withered forest? Liu Yun frowned slightly. Even standing outside, he could feel that this grey and withered forest hid infinite horror. Once he entered, life and death would be unpredictable. I'm afraid it won't work. This withered forest is so huge, I don't know how much time it will take to go around it. Why don't I just kill my way through this withered forest? Qin Yang was fearless. Hearing this, Liu Yun no longer hesitated. Then kill through this dead forest. King Niu also let out a roar. The roar was like thunder, shaking all around. Qin Yang slapped him directly. Why are you shouting so loudly? Even though King Niu had broken through to the realm of fierce monsters, he was still honest in front of Qin Yang, not daring to say a word, and immediately shut his mouth. The two people and the monster quickly stepped into this grey forest. This forest is so cold. Liu Yun frowned. This forest was filled with gloomy coldness, and there was a cold wind blowing from time to time. The sound of the cold wind was as sharp and terrifying as the howling of many ghosts. Even a physique like King Niu needs to circulate demon power to maintain body temperature. Only Qin Yang does not need it. This kind of cold is not worth mentioning compared to his Bidao Zen Wu vitality. After walking in the grey forest for more than an hour, Qin Yang's ears heard some faint friction sounds. When he raised his head, a huge grey spider as big as a tank fell from the sky and pounced on Qin Yang's face fiercely, looking for death. Qin Yang circulated his strength, and the vitality in his body was mobilized by the way, and his fist suddenly burst out with shocking power. Boom. The grey spider, that pounced down from a high place, was directly blown away with a punch, and kept smashing the dead wood. When it fell to the ground, Bidao Zenwu's vitality spread, and its body instantly condensed into a deep blue ice sculpture. Be careful. The guy hiding in the dead forest finally couldn't help it. Qin Yang said in a deep voice. Liu Yun also stretched out one hand, and condensed a magic sword with magic power. Master, let me do it. It's just right to test my strength after the breakthrough. King Niu held the black stone axe in both hands. His eyes became manic, and pieces of strong and terrifying muscles bulged, emitting a terrible murderous aura. Then I'll leave it to you. Qin Yang nodded. Rustling all kinds of friction sounds began to appear around them. Dense and strange blue lights kept appearing, surrounding them unknowingly. These are the eyes of those strange spiders. Come on. Cute little spider. King Neo roared wildly, and his body suddenly grew in size, turning into a bull demon more than 5 meters tall, covered with blue-black scales, holding a stone axe, surrounded by black air, and terrifying. This guy is indeed a bit intimidating, Qin Yang said in surprise. Even when he burst out with all his strength, he did not have such a huge body. This is the innate advantage of the monster beast. The physique is really terrible. Liu Yan nodded. The next moment, the whole withered forest seemed to shake. King Neo strode towards those grey spiders. Even though these grey spiders were not small in size, King Neo's strength could be said to be pulling mountains and rivers, and with the stone axe, it could be said to be like a tiger with wings. He swung the stone axe, as if turning into a black whirlwind, and chopped the grey spiders into pieces. At this moment, more than a dozen grey spiders fell from the sky. The huge weight and the impact of the fall were so strong that even King Neo could not bear it, and was thrown to the ground directly. For a while, more than a dozen dark grey spiders were pressing down on King Neo like a pile of assets. Seeing this, Liu Yan was about to take action. Don't be impatient. King Neo is just a fool, and is not afraid of this kind of situation. Qin Yang signaled Liu Yan not to be so impatient. Roar, an angry roar suddenly sounded. A terrifying demonic force suddenly erupted, blowing up all the dark grey spiders pressing down on King Neo. Crack. King Neo stood up suddenly, grabbed a dark grey spider with his big hand, and bit it to pieces with his bloody mouth. Many of his dark blue scales were cracked, and blood flowed out. It was obvious that he had been knocked down just now, which still caused him a lot of injuries. However, this seemed to have further stimulated King Neo's ferocity. His eyes were scarlet, and he swung the stone axe more domineeringly. Boom. A terrible and dense loud noise. A loud noise meant that a dark grey spider was smashed by the stone axe. Soon, the bodies of the dark grey spiders piled up into a small hill, and dark green blood flowed all over the ground. The remaining dark grey spiders seemed to be frightened by the killing of the blue bull, and they all ran away. The blue bull was so murderous that he wanted to chase after it. Qin Yang hurriedly stopped him. Hearing Qin Yang's voice, the scarlet in the blue bull's eyes dissipated a little, and he did not chase after it. It hurts. The teeth of these little spiders are still quite sharp. The blue bull returned to its normal size, and walked back with a grin. The scales on your body are good, quite strong. Qin Yang smiled. Not enough if I practice to the level of a great demon. Standing here and letting these spiders bite for a whole day can't break your skin. The blue bull grinned. Then you should practice to the level of a great demon quickly. Qin Yang nodded. After dealing with these dark grey spiders, there was no more abnormality. Until dark. Wash after nightfall, the cold wind became more biting, and even heavy snow fell. The temperature became extremely cold. Should we continue walking? Liu Yan asked hesitantly. In a short time, a thick layer of white snow had piled up on the ground of the dead forest. Let's keep going. Qin Yang didn't feel the difference between day and night. Master, something seems wrong. King Neo suddenly said. What's wrong? Qin Yang asked. You saw that, when I killed those grey spiders just now, some blood was spilled. King Neo pointed to the ground. Liu Yan cast a spell, summoning a ball of white light to illuminate the ground. There were several places on the ground that were not covered by white snow. There was a pool of blood in those places. This was King Neo's blood. Because it was too hot, it melted the ice and snow, so there was no white snow covering it. Where is your blood on the bodies of those grey spiders? Qin Yang frowned. King Neo had killed at least hundreds of grey spiders just now. I wonder if they were eaten by something. King Neo was also curious about this. So, we have actually been circling in this grey and dead forest. Liu Yan's eyes were solemn. Chapter 336 End. Yes, if it weren't for the pool of blood on the ground, I'm afraid we haven't noticed it yet. King Neo sighed. It seems that this grey and withered forest wants to trap us here forever. Qin Yang looked around. It was almost the same scene, with countless twisted grey branches twisted and entangled together. There was also wind and snow all over the sky, making the vision even more blurred. I don't believe it can really trap me for a lifetime. At worst, I can chop all the dead trees here into pieces. King Neo muttered. Okay. Keep going down, and take a look. Qin Yang wanted to see if there was anything else unusual in this grey and withered forest. This time, King Neo walked while waving the black stone axe, leaving marks among the dead trees. Another hour passed. King Neo looked at the black bloodstains on the ground and whispered, "We are back again." If they said they were lost last time, it could be explained. But this time they were all concentrating on moving forward, and it was impossible for them to go back to the same place. "We should be disturbed by some mysterious power," Liu Yun said in a deep voice. Qin Yang frowned slightly. He had been keeping his mind clear all the time just now, so he couldn't be disturbed. At this time, there was a sudden sound of footsteps in front. King Neo subconsciously clenched the black stone axe. Qin Yang signaled it not to act rashly. Not long after, a sect team walked out from the shadow of the grey and white withered forest. This team had 7 or 8 people, all tall and strong men, carrying heavy weapons such as maces and hammers. "You are new to this mountain forest, right?" a big man with a collapsed nose and an ugly face asked. "Well, we just came in today. As a result, we got lost in this grey and withered forest," Qin Yang said softly. "No one can get out of this grey and withered forest. You can only wish you good luck." The ugly big man said this and was about to lead people away. "Brother, how long have you been in this withered forest?" Qin Yang asked another question. "It's been 3 days. I met a team before. That team is composed of 3 martial saints, but they were also trapped in this withered forest and couldn't get out," the ugly man said indifferently. So, Qin Yang thought, "By the way, if you meet someone who wants to lead you, be careful." The ugly man reminded him at last, and then led his people to the withered forest on the other side. "You say you can't get out. You're just wandering around here," King Neo muttered. "Don't talk about them. We are also wandering around," Qin Yang said indifferently. "We are different. I believe the master will find a way out soon." King Neo smiled foolishly. "It's not that easy. This grey withered forest is not simple." Qin Yang shook his head and then walked towards the place where the ugly man and his men disappeared. "Follow them?" King Neo was stunned. "Yes," Qin Yang nodded. "I want to see whether they are human or ghosts." Liu Yun also nodded and said, "I just wanted to say that these people are a bit suspicious. It doesn't make sense. They still have a strong aura of living people." King Neo was surprised. If it were in a normal place, this trick would work. "Don't forget where you are here," Qin Yang reminded. "In this strange grey and withered forest, perception may be disturbed." "I understand." King Neo was not stupid and immediately understood what Qin Yang meant. The 2 people and the demon walked towards the forest where the ugly man disappeared. But after walking for more than half an hour, they never saw the ugly man and his group again. "These guys, are they really ghosts?" King Neo said in horror. "They have already quickened their pace and should catch up soon. It is also possible that we are lost." Liu Yun shook his head. At this time, a figure suddenly walked out in front. "Are you lost?" The figure was wearing black cloth shoes and a blue Taoist robe, as if he was an ordinary Taoist priest, and asked softly, "But how could he be an ordinary Taoist priest in such a place?" King Neo immediately thought of what the ugly man had said just now, and was slightly stunned. Is there really someone leading them? Yes. Does the Taoist priest know how to get there? Qin Yang seemed to have forgotten what the ugly man had said just now, and asked softly, "Of course I know. Everyone, follow me." The Taoist priest nodded gently. King Neo was very confused. But Qin Yang was his master, so he could only follow Qin Yang. As for Liu Yun, he didn't know whether this Taoist priest was good or bad. He only knew that Qin Yang must have a reason for doing this. So he didn't say anything. Qin Yang and the Taoist priest walked in front and talked. Liu Yun and King Neo followed behind. "Taoist priest, do you know why you will definitely get lost if you walk in this withered forest?" Qin Yang asked curiously. "Do you feel anything, benefactor?" The Taoist priest chuckled. "It's a bit strange. My mind should not be disturbed. But I was really disturbed, and I kept circling in this withered forest." Qin Yang said seriously. "It's actually very simple. This withered forest is constantly moving. It's not dead, it's alive. If you don't understand the rules, you will naturally get lost." The blue-robed Taoist said softly. Could it be that this withered forest is a huge formation? Liu Yun had this suspicion before. but the formation that can cover the entire withered forest is too huge. It is beyond Liu Yang's imagination. Yes, this withered forest itself is an evil formation. It will devour any living creature that comes in, and then the soul will be trapped in this withered forest and can never be freed. The blue-robed Taoist said lightly. So the Taoist priest has been trapped in hatred for a long time. Qin Yang suddenly said. King Niu was shocked. He subconsciously grasped the axe handle. Generally speaking, asking this question is the rhythm of tearing the face. Yes, I have been trapped in this withered forest for a long time. So long that I have forgotten how many years ago it was. The blue-robed Taoist priest sighed slightly. Since the Taoist priest can take us away, why don't you leave yourself? Qin Yang asked again. You can't leave, the blue-robed Taoist said seriously. Why can't you leave? Qin Yang asked again. You must know. The blue-robed Taoist turned around and stared at Qin Yang with a pair of grey eyes. Yes. Qin Yang nodded. Why? The blue-robed Taoist frowned. Because I have seen you in this Taoist robe. Zuan Wu sect. Qin Yang's eyes became serious. The blue-robed Taoist stared at Qin Yang for a while and said in a deep voice, I know you know, so you must leave. Just because I'm the last heir of Zuan Wu sect? Qin Yang smiled. He did not forget his identity. I can't let the continuation of Zuan Wu sect be cut off. You must leave. The blue-robed Taoist nodded. That won't work. 3,650 people from Zuan Wu sect died here. I met you today, and there must be a break. Qin Yang's eyes were firm. Chapter 337 Persistence. Qin Yang's words made the blue-robed Taoist stunned for a long time. Liu Yan and King Niu didn't know about the Zuan Wu sect, but after listening to Qin Yang's words, it was not difficult to guess that Qin Yang and the blue-robed Taoist seemed to have some connection. People from the Zuan Wu sect are really like this. The blue-robed Taoist shook his head and smiled bitterly. Isn't it the same for the senior? If I really leave this withered forest, I'm afraid the senior will be even more disappointed. Qin Yang smiled. I don't know, but I still hope that you can leave this withered forest. The blue-robed Taoist sighed and said, you guys follow me. As he said that, he began to change direction and headed to another place. Qin Yang signaled King Niu and Liu Yan to follow. Along the way, Qin Yang talked to the blue-robed Taoist and learned his name, Zhu Xingzi. He was an ordinary elder of the Zuan Wu sect back then. Back then, my Zuan Wu sect came out in full force for the sake of the people of the world. More than 3,000 people are buried here. Today, there are only a dozen remaining souls, and the rest have long been wiped out. Zhu Xingzi said softly. The remaining souls are not immortal. After countless years of time, and in this environment, the souls can easily be dissipated. To be able to stay here, it is natural that there is a strong obsession. Then why must the senior stay in this endless withered forest? Qin Yang asked. You will know, if you follow me. Zhu Xingzi said lightly. More than an hour passed. A group of people just walked out from another direction and collided with Qin Yang and others. It's you. The ugly man recognized Qin Yang. But when he saw the blue-robed Taoist beside Qin Yang, his expression changed drastically. Didn't I warn you that you must never trust the person who wants to take you out? Zhu Xingzi had no expression on his face. Qin Yang smiled and said, I just forgot. The ugly man looked at the blue-robed Taoist with a serious face, as if the other party was a scourge. He whispered, we can kill him together and still live. Qin Yang shook his head and said, do you still want to live? You should have died 3 days ago. The ugly man sneered. It seems that you are really confused. Talk so much nonsense. See how many axes you can block. King Niu didn't even need Qin Yang to say anything, and rushed over with a stone axe. This guy Qin Yang was helpless. Since King Niu accepted the inheritance, it seems to be more warlike than before. The ugly man and others all urged their weapons and fought with King Niu. Boom boom. This ugly man is not weak, and the golden good hammer has the power to destroy the mountain when it swings. In the battle with a stone axe, he is not at a disadvantage. King Niu was excited and turned into the real body of the bull demon again, fighting crazily. The ugly man and others were suppressed immediately. Maybe there were too many fighting noises. Many teams kept appearing in the originally desolate forest. When they saw the blue-robed Taoist priest, they all had fierce eyes, as if they saw some demons and monsters. They were more direct than the ugly man. and rushed over with swords. Zhu Xingzi was still indifferent. Qin Yang saw this and knew that he could only take action himself. The strength of these warriors who came to besiege was not bad. There were even 1 or 2 martial saints with huge aura, which could communicate with the heaven and earth to suppress them. Clang with the sound of a knife. A black tortoise long knife appeared in Qin Yang's hand, and the deep and fierce aura suddenly turned into a black tortoise phantom behind him. This scene finally moved Zhu Xingzi slightly. The next moment, the deep cold knife light bloomed in this dark and grey dead forest. The wild sea and the Dead Sea floated. The strong death intention mixed with a deep cold sharp knife light, constantly cutting and slicing the figures. I was deceived by evil spirits. It's shameful. A middle-aged man appeared behind Qin Yang, clenched his right fist, and punched out domineeringly. The void instantly roared and exploded. The fist hit Qin Yang's back fiercely. Boom. The protective vitality was broken. Qin Yang also launched a counter-attack in an instant, turning around and making a fierce slash. The middle-aged man grinned, raised his left hand to block the blade, and gathered his fist strength in his right hand again, hitting Qin Yang's heart. Qin Yang looked calm, clenched his left fist, and punched forward. Dragon subduing, mighty sea suppressing. Boom. The 2 fists collided fiercely. The skin on the middle-aged man's arm burst in an instant, and the bones turned into powder in an instant. The moment the body flew backwards, a flash of knife light fell. Puff. The middle-aged man's head flew up. Go to hell. Another martial saint took advantage of this opportunity to launch a sneak attack on Qin Yang. He held a sharp knife and poked Qin Yang's head bloodily. Boom. Qin Yang stomped on the ground fiercely, and the terrifying power made the earth tremble and roll in waves. The martial saint was affected and his body suddenly stopped. The next moment, Qin Yang turned around, and the black tortoise knife in his hand instantly slashed out a sky of knife light, sweeping out like a sea of blood. The martial saint only blocked a dozen knives before Qin Yang chopped off his head and died. At this time, the ugly man could not withstand the mad attack of King Niu and kept retreating. Even the golden good hammer was smashed by the giant axe. In the end, the whole man was split in half by King Niu's force to split ocean. The remaining warriors still rushed like crazy, and Qin Yang was not soft at all, and killed them all. Have these people turned into evil spirits or been bewitched? Qin Yang was a little confused. These people are alive, and there is nothing wrong with their flesh and blood. In other words, they have not turned into evil spirits. If it is to bewitch the mind, it is understandable if it is an ordinary warrior, but it is incredible that even a martial saint can be bewitched. Those who can cultivate to the martial saint realm are all mentally firm and difficult to bewitch. None of them. Look at that man's head. The blue-robed Taoist shook his head and pointed to the ugly man's head. The ugly man's head had been split in half and was extremely bloody. When Qin Yang looked at it carefully, his eyes suddenly changed. He saw that the ugly man's brain had been hollowed out, and there was a black tumor that looked like an insect egg. Even the tumor was still beating. What is this? King Niu also saw the black tumor and looked surprised. When he walked over to check, something strange happened. The tumor suddenly exploded, and a ferocious dark red spider pounced on King Niu. It was as fast as lightning, and King Niu didn't react. Whoosh! A ray of sword energy passed by, cutting the dark red spider into 2 pieces. Qin Yang also suddenly realized. It turned out that it was controlled by the parasite. King Niu was also shocked and sweating. His strength was equivalent to that of an ordinary human martial saint. In addition to his strong bloodline, his fighting ability was all due to the power of the black stone axe. If this dark red spider pounced on his face, it would be really dangerous. I have met these people before, and I have wanted to take them out. But they didn't listen to my advice and always thought I was an evil spirit. In the end, they died and their bodies were parasitized by the little ghost spider. The blue-robed Taoist sighed. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 338 Spider. Little Ghost Spider? Senior, what is this? Qin Yang asked in confusion. You will know if you follow me. Zhu Xingzi kept it a secret. Qin Yang and his companions could only follow behind curiously. This time, with Zhu Xingzi leading the way, they finally did not go around in circles, but came to an open space. In this grey open space stood an old and dilapidated Taoist temple. The walls of this Taoist temple were even cracked, as if it had been abandoned for a long time. "Go in," the blue-robed Taoist said lightly. Qin Yang was not afraid at all, and walked directly into the Taoist temple. Liu Yan and King Niu followed behind him. Sniff. When Qin Yang stepped into the Taoist temple, dim brass lamps lit up one by one. There was neither a platform nor a statue of a god in the Taoist temple, only a dozen cushions. A dozen phantoms wearing rotten Taoist robes sat cross-legged on the cushions. This scene was naturally terrifying, but Qin Yang and his companions were not nervous at all. They could all feel that there was no malice in this dilapidated Taoist temple. Creak. Suddenly, the dozen Taoist corpses who were sitting on the futons suddenly turned their heads. Their faces changed rapidly and turned into normal people. The next moment, these Taoists stood up and bowed to Qin Yang. "Meet the head." King Niu widened his eyes and couldn't help turning his head to look at Qin Yang. Liu Yan was also stunned and looked stunned. Even Qin Yang himself was at a loss. Just when he turned around and wanted to ask Zhu Xingzi, he found that the other party also stepped into the Taoist temple and saluted him. "Dear seniors, I'm not the head," Qin Yang hurriedly explained. "You have a black tortoise pendant on you. According to the rules of my Zhuanwu sect, those who wear the black tortoise jade pendant are the head of the sect." A Taoist in a black and white robe said in a deep voice. This Taoist looked elegant and had a good temperament. "Who is the senior?" Qin Yang asked. "I'm the 32nd head of the Zhuanwu sect, Zhu Wuzi." The Taoist smiled. "Since you are the leader of Zhuanwu sect, why do you still call me the leader?" Qin Yang couldn't understand. "Because the Zhuanwu jade pendant is on you. You are the 33rd leader of Zhuanwu sect and the current leader. I can also be considered a former leader." Zhu Wuzi laughed. Qin Yang's expression became strange. He took out something from his arms. It was a Zhuanwu jade pendant. He got this jade pendant from the ruins of Zhuanwu sect. He never thought that this would be the token of the leader of Zhuanwu sect. Seeing Qin Yang take out the Zhuanwu jade pendant, the faces of more than a dozen Taoists immediately became serious. Seeing this, Qin Yang hurriedly put the jade pendant away again. "Senior Zhu Wuzi, I just heard Senior Zhu Xingzi say that you can't leave here. Why is that?" Qin Yang changed the subject. "Master Qin, this withered forest is actually a ghost nest. This ghost species is called the ghost spider. It is extremely vicious and can continuously reproduce small ghost spiders, parasitize living beings, and control their thoughts and actions. Back then, this ghost spider caused great damage to our coalition forces. My Zhuanwu sect was ordered by Huang Yuxin to come and suppress it. After a fierce battle, more than 3,000 people from the Zhuanwu sect died. The ghost spider was too seriously injured and spun silk into a cocoon to protect itself." Zhu Wuzi said softly. "So, your residual souls are left here, wanting to suppress the ghost spider forever?" Qin Yang understood. "No, we can't suppress it forever. The ghost spider has revived with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and it seems to have signs of rebirth. And we only have a wisp of residual soul left. I'm afraid we can't suppress it for long." Zhu Wuzi said frankly. "It's okay. I'm here. I'll kill this ghost spider for you," Qin Yang said directly. Although Zhu Wuzi met Qin Yang for the first time, but he did not doubt the strength of the current Zhuanwu sect leader. With his eyes, he could naturally see how strong Qin Yang was. He might not have no chance against the ghost spider who had not yet been completely reborn. "We are willing to follow the leader." Zhu Wuzi, Zhu Xingzi and others spoke at the same time. "Seniors, don't do this. You are much stronger than me." Qin Yang waved his hand hurriedly. The elders of the Zhuanwu sect who were sitting there were probably all Tangshan Washan at their peak. Otherwise, the residual souls would not be able to withstand so many years of baptism. As for the leader Zhu Wuzi, it goes without saying that he must be a powerful person who has ascended to heaven. We are just a wisp of residual soul now. We can't help the leader too much." Zhu Wuzi shook his head. "Enough." Qin Yang smiled. "Then the leader will follow me." Zhu Wuzi didn't waste any words and took Qin Yang out of the Taoist temple. Behind the Taoist temple, there is a black boulder. The boulder is oval in shape, with many tumor-like lumps protruding on the surface, and talismans all over the body. Even so, Qin Yang could still sense the terrible malice coming from the black boulder. "Master, the cocoon formed by the ghost spider," Zhu Wuzi said in a deep voice. As if hearing Zhu Wuzi's voice, the giant corpse began to shake wildly. "Zhu Wuzi, you guys can't trap me for much longer. When I'm reborn, I will grind your corpses to dust." A malicious whisper spread from the pitch black boulder. "Ghost spider, we have been entangled for countless years. After today, everything has come to an end," Zhu Wuzi said lightly. "Just you or the new master of your Zuanwu sect?" Disdainful whispers came from the pitch black boulder. Obviously, it seemed that the conversation between Qin Yang and Zhu Wuzi in the Taoist temple was eavesdropped by it. "Just me?" Qin Yang laughed. "Ha ha ha." The pitch black boulder shook wildly. "Puff!" Exclamation mark. The next moment, countless spiked claws pierced out from the inside of the boulder, and a black mist spread at the same time. The boulder quickly turned into a terrifying spider more than 3 meters tall. Its head looked like a ghost face, and it was covered with dense black mist. Its claws were as sharp as knives, and exuded amazing malice. As the ghost spider showed its true form, everything around it seemed to become distorted. Liu Yan and King Niu both felt numb, nauseous, and dizzy. Qin Yang frowned slightly, and the blood and ki in his body burst out directly. Boom. It was like a tsunami suddenly rising from the deep sea. A fierce and cold aura rose from Qin Yang, turning into a black tortoise phantom, madly colliding with the polluted aura emitted by the ghost spider. "Damn it." King Niu also roared, and turned into the real body of the bull demon. The stone axe in his hand exuded a fierce aura, offsetting the polluted power. A terrible sword intent bloomed in Liu Yan's body. Zhu Yuanzi also smiled at this time. "My friend, borrow my sword." Liu Yan immediately stretched out his right hand. Whoosh! A white divine sword appeared in his palm. This divine sword was the same one that had pierced the snake demon species in the mountain ruins. "Senior, take it and use it." Liu Yan handed it to Zhu Wuzi. Buzz buzz buzz. The white divine sword seemed to recognize Zhu Wuzi and kept trembling. Bright light sword. Zhu Wuzi stroked the sword, as if he saw the heroic figure riding the sword in the past. Chapter 339. No regrets. In the past, countless talented people appeared in the attack on Mengtian Gate. They united together for the continuation of the human race, and launched the war to destroy the sky. It was at that time that Zhu Wuzi met the owner of the Mingguang sword. Now that he met the Mingguang sword again, he felt infinite emotion in his heart. Okay. Zhu Wuzi smiled slightly, holding the sword in one hand, and suddenly killed the ghost spider. The Mingguang sword suddenly turned into a dazzling white light, as if a round of day appeared in the sky, pressing towards the ghost spider. "Zhu Wuzi, I will eat you today." The ghost spider made a strange cry. Its body suddenly shot out countless fine spider silks, condensed into a dark spear, and 2 black ghost claws clenched and stabbed fiercely. Puff! The void seemed to be pierced by this shot. With a clang, the sharp and terrifying white sword energy suddenly spread, shooting holes all over the earth. Zhu Wuzi was shot and flew away. He was just a remnant soul, and his strength was far from that of the ghost spider. The ghost spider's terrifying ghost face showed a grim smile. His body sank, and he suddenly jumped up, with the long spear in his hand, wrapped in black mist, and stabbed out fiercely. At this moment, the ghost spider was as terrifying as the arrival of the devil. Break the void. At this time, a figure suddenly appeared beside Zhu Wuzi. Qin Yang's muscles bulged all over his body, and his eyes were black and white, with the meaning of the cycle of yin and yang, life and death. Facing this ghost spider, Qin Yang directly turned on the strongest state, and the blood in his body circulated the yin and yang, life and death talisman, and punched out. The void roared violently, as if it was broken glass. And the black spear of the ghost spider also fell at this time, just hitting Qin Yang's fist. Boom. The earth collapsed and exploded in an instant, and countless dust and smoke rose. Qin Yang's body was pushed back more than 10 steps, and every step was deeply trampled into the ground. Interesting. After the ghost spider landed from midair, he grinned, rushed forward suddenly, and at the same time drove the spider silk spear in his hand, stabbing out fiercely. Whoosh whoosh. The moment the spider silk spear stabbed out, ghosts cried and wolves howled, making people palpitate. The moment Qin Yang stabilized his body, Bidao Zenwu's vitality surged wildly and turned into a heavy black tortoise sword. Desolate sea, sure blood sea. The bloody breath of killing suddenly burst out from the blade, as if it turned into an endless sea of blood and rushed out. Clang clang clang, blood and darkness kept colliding. Countless terrible airwaves spread, cutting the earth and bombing it into pieces. Qin Yang's body was forced to retreat continuously by the spider silk spear. The power of the ghost spider was too terrible, and the power of the spider silk spear was extremely terrifying every time it stabbed. Even though the Yin Yang life and death talisman was activated, and there were many magical powers, Qin Yang was still a little worse. King Niu saw Qin Yang being suppressed and waved a stone axe to kill him. Bang! But his always proud strength seemed to be nothing in front of the ghost spider. The ghost spider condensed a spider silk spear in his left hand again, and swept it out. At the moment of the collision between the spear and the axe, the two copper bell eyes of King Niu bulged out instantly, and the bulging fascia and flesh all over his body suddenly split open. Whoosh whoosh, ghost spider swung another spider silk spear, and was about to pierce King Niu's chest. Bang! A figure roared wildly, and slammed into ghost spider fiercely. Ghost spider roared, and was knocked back half a step. King Niu took this opportunity, his eyes were fierce, and the bulging muscles of his right arm contracted instantly. This was a secret method that King Niu had just learned, which could compress his own muscles and then burst out terrible power instantly. The next moment, King Niu's muscles seemed to be compressed to the extreme, and he threw the black axe in his hand. He knew that the only thing he could do to Ghost Spider was this pitch black giant axe. Puff! The pitch black stone axe suddenly broke into the ghost-faced head of Ghost Spider, looking for death. Ghost Spider roared angrily, without even pulling out the stone axe. The two spider silk spears poked out dense after images and fiercely enveloped King Niu. At this moment, Qin Yang suddenly blocked in front of King Niu and used the 9 swords of the wild sea, constantly colliding with the spider silk spears. King Niu took this opportunity, flashed his body, and distanced himself from Ghost Spider. He knew that the gap between him and Ghost Spider was too big, and he couldn't get involved at all. Damn reptile. Ghost Spider looked at Qin Yang, furious. This was the second time Qin Yang interrupted his attack. Its body swelled up again, and its strength increased again, and it madly bombarded Qin Yang. Qin Yang suffered an unprecedented terrorist attack. The opponent's attack was not only powerful, but also had a terrifying frequency. Qin Yang seemed to be shrouded in black rain, and there was terrible murderous intent everywhere. But Qin Yang was not afraid, but enjoyed this pressure. This is the real battle. Ding ding ding, the Zuanwu knife kept colliding with the spider silk spear. Qin Yang had already lost all thoughts. He was fighting the ghost spider completely with his consciousness. Although his body was still injured, the blood and ki that burst out of his body never weakened. What a terrifying vitality. Liu Yan, who had been watching the battle, was slightly surprised. He could feel that Qin Yang was emitting two completely different auras at this moment. A deep and fierce majestic aura. He was very familiar with this aura, which was obviously Qin Yang's signature. But the other aura was something he had never seen before. It was full of tenacious vitality, as if it was immortal. The two auras blended together and actually produced some kind of wonderful reaction, causing the aura to continue to grow. Is this aura the Deadwood Immortal Sutra? Zhu Wuzi was a little surprised. Since he stabbed that sword, he has never made a move again, as if he was waiting for an opportunity. It should be the Deadwood Immortal Sutra. I didn't expect that the technique that my Zuanwu sect has been looking for so many years has not been found. It turned out that he found it. Zhu Xingzi sighed. Maybe he could be the one who changes destiny. Just like the Wild Moon Fairy back then. Zhu Wuzi muttered to himself. Haha. That's good. Maybe our Zuanwu sect could be glorious again. Zhu Xingzi laughed. Yeah. My fellow disciples. Let's lend a helping hand to the sect master. Zhu Wuzi smiled. Great. All the Taoists smiled and nodded. Buzz buzz buzz, the Mingguang sword vibrated at this moment. The next moment, Zhu Wuzi, Zhu Xingzi and other Taoists all sat cross-legged. They revealed their true form and turned into withered corpses. Then their corpses seemed to burn, and deep blue air currents wrapped around their bodies. Liu Yan seemed to understand something. His expression touched, and he saluted the Taoists of Zuanwu sect with the highest etiquette of Taoism. My seniors, I'm enough. Qin Yang also seemed to feel something and shouted loudly. It's not important. Our biggest obsession is not to suppress the ghost spider. But we are afraid that no one will be able to pass on the Zuanwu sect. Now that you appear, our obsession has begun to dissipate. In that case, why not burn our last bit of strength? Zhu Wu's voice echoed in the void. Chapter 340 Obsession. Is this your obsession? Qin Yang was distracted. Bang. The next moment, he was hit by a fierce gunshot from Ghost Spider and flew dozens of meters away. You dare to be distracted while fighting with me? Ghost Spider roared angrily. So what? Qin Yang stood with a knife. The next moment, the corpses of Zhu Wuzi and others condensed into a deep airflow, which gathered in the air and merged into Qin Yang's body like a stream of water. This was the transmission of skills. In Qin Yang's sight, the proficiency of Bidao Zen Wuzu and Gong was increasing crazily. 11th level, 12th level, 12th level. The aura emanating from Qin Yang became more and more powerful and fierce, and could even trigger celestial phenomena. Boom. Thick black clouds appeared strangely, covering the grey and withered forest. For a moment, lightning snakes rolled, and the wind blew violently. Heavy rain fell crazily. Ghost Spider suddenly pulled out the stone axe from his head and rushed towards Qin Yang crazily. It now felt a throbbing sensation from Qin Yang's body. That was a dangerous breath. The heavy rain wet Qin Yang's hair. He looked at the charging Ghost Spider and grinned. Doma body. Open. Boom. In an instant, the Bidao Zen Wu Yuan Qi in his body rolled and exploded wildly. Qin Yang's body instantly turned into a giant more than 3 meters tall, with a dragon head wrapped around his left hand and a snake head wrapped around his right hand, like an ancient god, with cold water mist lingering all over his body. This is the second level of the realm of martial saints, Dharma body. When the Ghost Spider attacked, Qin Yang grinned, his figure flashed suddenly, and his right arm suddenly shot out a white star falling into the sea. Bang. When his fist hit the spider silk spear, the fist force was as terrible as the sea overturning. The spider silk spear couldn't bear it at all, and was suddenly shattered, turning into countless spider silk ruptures. Whoosh. Another spider silk spear quietly and strangely pierced Qin Yang's eyeballs. Qin Yang dodged his head to the side, and at the same time, he kicked with his right leg. Infinite heavy whip. The whole thigh burst out with terrible power, and kicked the lower body of the Ghost Spider fiercely. Bang. A dozen claws were directly kicked and shattered. Even the Ghost Spider's body was kicked away. Boom. Qin Yang's expression was like an angry sea, with endless and terrible momentum bursting out, and he rushed towards the Ghost Spider fiercely. Kill. The Ghost Spider's ghost face, that was split in half, was extremely angry, and he stabbed out with the spider silk spear in both hands. Ding ding ding. After Qin Yang broke through to the Dharmakaya realm, his strength was much stronger, and his fists kept colliding with the spider silk spear for more than a dozen times. With a roar, the spider silk spear was smashed by Qin Yang's heavy punch. Swish. Qin Yang jumped up suddenly, and his whole body burst out with platinum vitality. The dragon head wrapped in the muscles of his left arm also roared at this time. White star. Fall into the sea. Boom. This punch hit the Ghost Spider's head hard. The opponent's huge body suddenly sank in. Qin Yang seized this opportunity and mobilized his divine power with both arms at the same time, like two divine swords, and slashed the Ghost Spider's head hard on both sides. Puff. The Ghost Spider's ghost face instantly exploded like a watermelon squeezed by a powerful force. At the same time, Qin Yang also stomped hard on the Ghost Spider's body. This heavy stomping was like an ancient giant beast raising its front hoof. The Ghost Spider's body suddenly exploded into a ball of plasma. After Qin Yang landed, he looked at the ball of plasma with a cold expression. The vitality of the ghost species is really terrible. Until now, the ball of plasma is still wriggling, as if it is going to regenerate like a massive sarcoma tissue. You have no chance. Qin Yang circulated the Bidao Zen Wu Yuan Qi in his body. The terrifying aura spread and turned into a platinum sharp light, trying to erase this massive sarcoma. These platinum sharp lights fell into the sarcoma, only cutting a hole. Then it was swallowed by the sarcoma. The next moment, the cut healed automatically. Qin Yang frowned slightly. This ghost species was too twisted and weird. Even his Bidao Zen Wu Yuan Qi could not completely wipe it out. Swoosh. The Mingguang sword seemed to sense something, suddenly rose in the air, turned into a ball of white light, and continuously shot out dazzling sword light, landing in the tumor. Buzz, the pitch black stone axe also vibrated at this time. King Neo said nothing, and threw the pitch black stone axe in his hand directly at the tumor. The sword energy and demonic energy frantically wiped out the tumor. I, the ghost spider, am immortal. You guys want to wipe me out? The tumor emitted the ghost spider's loud laughter. Even though the two magic weapons were wiping it out, it was still not afraid. Because these two were not enough. The ghost spider is different from ordinary ghost species. Its power is close to that of the underworld species, and it is terribly strong. Back then, the Xuanwu sect also sacrificed the entire sect to suppress the ghost spider, but it could not wipe it out. Now Qin Yang also encountered the same problem that Zhu Wuzi had faced in the past. He could blow up the ghost spider, but he could not destroy it. Not necessarily. Qin Yang took out the Xuanwu jade pendant from his arms. My fellow brothers and uncles of Xuanwu sect, today, I will borrow your power to kill the ghost spider. Qin Yang held up the Xuanwu jade pendant and said loudly, "Great kindness." In an instant, countless voices rang out in the grey and withered forest. These were the Xuanwu sect disciples who died in the grey and withered forest in the past. They didn't even leave their corpses. But with Qin Yang's voice, these thoughts that had died for countless years actually woke up. Many figures in Taoist robes appeared in the air, looking at Qin Yang with a smile. Then, these figures turned into streams of light and continued to merge into the Xuanwu jade pendant. Buzz buzz buzz, the Xuanwu jade pendant began to emit a deep blue spiritual light. Until the moment when thousands of streams of light merged into the Xuanwu jade pendant, it flew out of Qin Yang's hand. The next moment, a fierce dragon roar came from the Xuanwu jade pendant. Boom. A terrifying and murderous aura spread from the Xuanwu jade pendant. This aura condensed in midair and turned into a Xuanwu phantom with a dragon head, a turtle body and a snake tail. This Xuanwu phantom was extremely huge, as if it had turned into a mountain, revealing an ancient and fierce aura. What a fierce aura. King Neo felt his whole body tremble. The evil aura was too terrifying and cruel. The Xuanwu phantom looked at the twisted tumor, as if it saw some food, opened its dragon head and bit it. No. Ghost spider roared. The twisted tumor exuded black air, and also formed a ghost face, as if it wanted to block Xuanwu's swallowing. But the next moment, this ghost face was crushed by the dragon's teeth, and it had no blocking effect at all. Puff. Xuanwu swallowed the twisted tumor into his mouth. The ghost spider who claimed to be immortal was swallowed by the Xuanwu phantom and died completely. The Xuanwu phantom also glanced at Qin Yang and then disappeared into the world. Qin Yang stretched out his hand and caught the fallen black tortoise jade pendant. With the death of the ghost spider, the grey and white withered forest no longer had that strange and gloomy aura. At this moment, a faint light appeared on the horizon. It's dawn, Qin Yang said softly, looking at the light. Yes, but it's not bright enough. Liu Yun sighed. It will be brighter. Qin Yang looked at the black tortoise jade pendant in his hand and said softly. Chapter 341 Healing. As the sun shone down, the withered forest seemed to lose some kind of support and gradually turned into ashes. However, Qin Yang did not set off immediately. He and King Neo were both injured. They first returned to the dilapidated Taoist temple to swallow the elixir and practice Qigong to heal their wounds. King Neo kept chewing the spirit stone, as if eating beans, making a crisp sound. Liu Yun was protecting them. In the interval of practicing Qigong to heal his wounds, Qin Yang also took the opportunity to check the proficiency panel. Host, Qin Yang Bidao Zen Wuzu and Gong. 13th level, 99 over 18,000. Divine power, overturning rivers and seas Deadwood Immortal Sutra. 6th level, 1319/4000. Dragon subduing fist, great accomplishment, 600 over 6,000. Wuji Spirit Body Sutra. 8th level, 672 over 8,000. Desolate C9 Swords, great accomplishment, 1899/6000. Crazy Thunder Step, great accomplishment. 1345/4000. As Zhu Wuzi and others burned their remaining souls, Qin Yang was enlightened. Bidao Zen Wuzu Enjing broke through to the 13th level, which is equivalent to the realm of Dharmakaya Martial Saint. Dharmakaya. It is already able to draw the power of heaven and earth into the body, and the body shape will undergo tremendous changes, like a god. With Qin Yang's physique and foundation, once he opens his Dharmakaya, he should be able to compete with Xiantian Martial Saint. After reading the panel, Qin Yang continued to operate the Deadwood Immortal Sutra. Strands of green vitality spread out in his body, like branches and leaves, constantly repairing himself. The Dead Tree Immortal Sutra also played a huge role this time. With the support of the immortal intention, Qin Yang was able to fight more recklessly. One day later, Qin Yang and King Niu were basically recovered. After the two men and the ox bowed 3 times to the Taoist temple, they continued to move forward into the depths of the desolate moon forbidden land. At this moment, Qin Yang suddenly stopped. He took out a talisman. The talisman flickered, as if conveying some kind of information. This guy's in trouble after all. Qin Yang shook his head. This talisman was left by Zhao Zinmo when he met him in Wangailu City. Once it flickered, it meant that the other party encountered some unsolvable danger. It seems it's quite close to me. Qin Yang looked at the flashing of the talisman. Zhao Zinmo had told him that the closer the two were, the more frequently the talisman would flicker. Master, don't worry. This guy is a nuisance. He won't die so easily. King Niu obviously had a grudge against Zhao Zinmo. It's hard to say in the desolate moon secret realm. Go there first, Qin Yang said quickly. After he and Liu Yun briefly explained, they confirmed their location with the help of the talisman, and rushed to the left front. The dark desolate moon plain. Zhao Zinmo was running madly with a group of disciples from the Thousand Birds sect. He looked back from time to time, as if observing something. Some disciples had been running for too long. Their physical strength and internal energy had been exhausted, and their will could not hold on. Their feet softened, and they fell directly to the ground. Get up quickly. That ghost thing will catch up soon. Zhao Zinmo shouted anxiously. Master Zhao, we can't run anymore, let's take a rest first. A disciple smiled bitterly. How is it possible? You are internal breath warriors. Zhao Zinmo whispered. I don't know. I feel more and more tired, and my internal energy is also dissipating crazily. A disciple shook his head. Zhao Zinmo was silent. He knew that this might be some kind of strange curse power. As they paused for a while, a terrifying, resentful and malicious force quickly attacked from afar. Master Zhao, I really can't run anymore. You take your fellow disciples and go first. A disciple laughed bitterly. Let's go. Zhao Zinmo gritted his teeth, and could only continue to flee with the remaining dozen disciples. After running a few miles, he couldn't help but look back. He saw a cold white mist behind him, and vaguely saw a pale and resentful figure floating in the air, and then there were bursts of screams. Is she treating us as prey? She is enjoying the process of chasing us. Zhao Zinmo frowned. He followed the Qian sect into the desolate moon forbidden land. Although he encountered many dangers along the way, he was safe. Until he came to the depths of the desolate moon forbidden land, he was entangled by the terrifying and resentful woman in white. This woman in white was too terrifying. Even the leader of the Qian sect, the martial saint, was no match for her, and was swallowed up. After that, Zhao Zinmo fled madly with the people of the Qian sect. But no matter how they ran, they would be caught up by the crazy woman. Just like that, Zhao Zinmo watched many Qian sect disciples die, but he had no way to do anything. Master Zhao, do we really have a chance to survive? Since we are all going to die, we might as well die quickly. Fight that terrifying ghost. Some disciples could no longer hold back, and their eyes flashed with madness. Yes, it's better to die quickly. I don't want to be swallowed by that ghost like senior brother Zhao and the others. Some Qian sect disciples echoed. Run. There will be a way to survive soon. Zhao Zinmo didn't want them to die in vain. But the next moment, a group of cold white mist appeared around them. This white mist was cold and strange, revealing endless resentment. The woman in white seemed to have lost her patience, and didn't want to play anymore, so she chased after them directly. This time, even Zhao Zinmo knew he had to fight. He took out a bag with bronze mirror, and kept shining it around the mist. The white fog was full of malice. He didn't know where the woman in white was hiding. He had to take a picture of her. At this moment, a disciple screamed. Zhao Zinmo looked back suddenly. he saw a pale arm grabbing a disciple from the depths of the white fog. A woman's face full of resentment emerged. The woman's mouth suddenly opened at an exaggerated angle, and inside were circles of spiral fangs, swallowing the disciple's head. With a click, the disciple instantly turned into a headless corpse. Zhao Zinmo hurriedly shone the bagwood bronze mirror over. Whoosh! A golden beam of light shot out. It fell on the face, and the other person's face melted a little like a candle. But it was only melted a little. The next moment, the woman in white grinned, turned into a white shadow, and pounced on Zhao Zinmo. Zhao Zinmo suddenly threw the bagwood bronze mirror out. With a clang, the 8-diagram bronze mirror smashed on the woman in white, and exploded, stopping the woman in white for a while. At the same time, Zhao Zinmo formed seals with his hands, and dozens of talismans suddenly flew out, forming a talisman array, surrounding the woman in white. Heavenly Fire Lotus, hurry up as the law commands. Zhao Zinmo shouted in a low voice. Boom. Dozens of talismans suddenly burst into terrifying and scorching red flames. These red flames formed into a bunch of heavenly fire lotuses, and then bloomed in an instant. Countless flame waves spread. The air twisted and filled with terrible heat, as if it had turned into a world of fire. The disciples of Qin Yang sect had been reminded by Zhao Zinmo in advance, and had already moved away. When they saw such a terrifying scene, a hint of expectation flashed in their eyes. Such a terrifying attack should have solved this terrifying woman in white. Chapter 342 City Wall. But when the flames dissipated, the faces of the Qin Yang disciples who had originally shown a hint of expectation were instantly filled with despair. They saw a figure whose whole body was melting and dripping with rancid blood appear in front of them. Zhao Zinmo panted, looked at the melting figure, shook his head and smiled bitterly. Sure enough. Still can't do it? Just now, he controlled dozens of spiritual talismans to form a talisman array, and then exploded at the same time, which basically exhausted all his magic power. The melting figure quickly recovered, and in the blink of an eye it returned to the appearance of the woman in white. It grinned at Zhao Zinmo, appeared beside him like teleportation, opened its mouth suddenly into a bloody mouth, and bit down. Zhao Zinmo's magic power was exhausted at this moment, and he could only wait helplessly. Clang! A sound like a dragon's roar, and a sound like a divine sword being unsheathed suddenly rang out in the world. The Qin Yang disciples suddenly opened their eyes wide. They saw a dragon with a broken sword in its mouth and deep scales tearing through the black fog and slamming into the woman in white. Puff! The light dissipated. A dark blue illusory long sword fiercely pierced into the body of the woman in white. Zhao Zinmo quickly dodged. The next moment, the woman in white let out a terrifying wail. Buzz! In an instant, the void seemed to be affected by the wail and suddenly twisted and cracked. Even the disciples of Qin Yang sect who were far away had their eardrums broken, their heads ringing, and they subconsciously covered their ears. The black tortoise longsword that was inserted into its body was also fiercely shattered by this wail, turning into a pool of ice crystals. Zhao Zinmo, where did you provoke such a fierce guy? Could it be that you are irresponsible to her after having a one-night stand? Qin Yang's figure appeared next to Zhao Zinmo, and he laughed jokingly. Do you think I'm worthy of her? You are quite suitable. Zhao Zinmo saw Qin Yang appear, and his heart was immediately settled. Forget it. Qin Yang shook his head. Give it to King Niu. It should like this one. Zhao Zinmo laughed. Zhao Zinmo, be careful. Grandpa and you will chop you to death with an axe. King Niu's burly body suddenly appeared behind Zhao Zinmo, and lifted him up with one hand. King Niu, how can you turn into a human form? Zhao Zinmo turned his head, surprised. What do you care about me? King Niu put Zhao Zinmo down. The woman in white didn't expect Qin Yang and his friends to ignore her and keep talking there. She let out a roar, and her hatred and death spread. In an instant, she turned into a terrifying evil spirit more than 10 meters tall, stretched out her pale ghost claws, and grabbed Qin Yang fiercely. The ghost claws were entangled with terrible hatred, and the resentment was overwhelming, very terrifying. Qin Yang looked calm, and the Bidao Zenwu Yuan Qi suddenly circulated, turning into a black tortoise phantom, and slammed into the woman in white. Bang! Bang! The first time, the black tortoise phantom smashed the pale ghost claws directly into pieces. The second time, it suddenly smashed the white ghost away. Endless resentment permeated the void, turning into a resentful female face. It looked down at Qin Yang and others, opening and closing its mouth, and saying some spells in a strange tone. Curse? Qin Yang's expression changed. The next moment, the Zuanwu longsword gathered in his hand again. A violent killing suddenly rose. Desolate sea Ashura blood sea. Whoosh. As Qin Yang slashed with a sword, the entire sky seemed to be filled with murderous intent, and turned blood red. The resentful female face in the sky was instantly chopped into pieces by the blood red sword light. Then, Qin Yang took a deep breath, and his whole body radiated a huge aura. This aura turned into an illusory human figure that was 100 meters tall, and it punched like a god. As Qin Yang broke through to the Dharmakaya realm, he became more and more proficient in mobilizing the aura of heaven and earth. The illusory figure of the god was his understanding and use of aura, similar to the Dharmakaya. Dragon subduing broken void. Boom. As the illusory divine figure punched out, the terrible wailing echoed in the sky for a few seconds. The endless resentment suddenly dissipated. A ghost seed was smashed by Qin Yang. The woman in white was just an ordinary ghost seed, not as difficult as the ghost spider, and she had not recovered much strength. Qin Yang killed her so easily. King Niu was not surprised. Zhao Zinmo's scalp was numb. He knew that Qin Yang could deal with ghost seeds, but he never thought it would be so easy. It was simply crushing. It looked like he didn't even sweat. Even he was like this, and the disciples of Qian Kinman were even more blank-headed, unable to come back to their senses for a long time. Qin Yang, you have been hiding your strength from me. Zhao Zinmo shook his head and said, that's not the case. I just broke through 2 days ago. If you don't believe me, ask King Niu. Qin Yang smiled. I would have followed you if I had known. Zhao Zinmo shook his head. Okay, you kid, you didn't gain anything on this journey? Qin Yang asked. Yes, I got the talisman array technique from a senior. I think it suits me very well. Zhao Zinmo smiled. Let's go. It's a waste of time to save you this time. Let's rush to the depths of the desolate moon forbidden land. Qin Yang said seriously. Okay, let's take these Qian Kinman disciples with us. Otherwise, they will just wait to die if they stay here. Zhao Zinmo suggested. Whatever you want. Qin Yang did not refuse. After that, Liu Yan also rushed over. After he introduced the two parties to each other, he headed for the desolate moon forbidden land. It took another 3 days to travel. During these 3 days, they encountered 2 ghost species. Each time, Qin Yang had to take action to solve them. Finally, they reached the deepest part of the desolate moon forbidden land. A dark giant city appeared in front of them. There is actually a city in the depths of the desolate moon forbidden land? Zhao Zinmo was very surprised. I have seen it on the road. What's the big deal? King Niu pouted. It's different. This city should be the core of the Mengshenman in the past. Qin Yang said in a deep voice. This huge city has a magnificent dark wall standing there, and it is impossible to see what is inside. The city gate is also tightly closed, but the dark wall is covered with many terrifying knife marks, sword marks, fist marks, and big hand marks. All kinds of attack methods seem to be found on this wall, and these marks should be left behind by the battle of destroying the sky. When Qin Yang saw a fist mark, he was slightly stunned. It was a huge fist mark, and the whole wall was dented by a punch. In a trance, Qin Yang seemed to see a figure like a god punching the wall. Dragon subduing fist. Qin Yang muttered to himself. He confirmed that he was not wrong. This fist mark was definitely punched out by the dragon subduing fist. After all, this martial art has been passed down for a long time, and it is said that it has been passed down from the mythological era. It is not surprising that there were warriors practicing in ancient times. Look at that rough axe mark. I can feel the breath of my ancestors from it. This should have been chopped out by my ancestors back then. King Niu murmured to himself. Chapter 343 Mark. The most intense place in the battle of destroying the sky back then should be here. Many powerful human beings and fierce monsters gathered together and followed Huang Yuxin to kill. But this wall is quite tough. It actually blocked the bombardment of so many powerful people. Looking at this wall, Zhao Zinmo exclaimed. I wonder what the scene is like behind this dark giant wall. Liu Yan's expression froze. Huang Yuxin perfected the forbidden technique of isolating the world in this dark giant city. Only by entering it can you find the method to perfect the forbidden technique of isolation. At this time, he suddenly felt something in his heart. He quickly flashed to the left and then saw a charred sword mark. The charred sword mark seemed to sense Liu Yun's existence and suddenly emitted a trace of sword intent. Whoosh! Liu Yun seemed to see a ray of incandescent sword light shooting towards him. He didn't have time to react and was pierced into the center of his eyebrows by the sword light. The next moment, he stood there stiffly, staring at the sword mark in a daze. Not only, even King Niu was the same. He looked at the rough axe mark, and his eyes gradually became empty. Opportunity. Great opportunity. Zhao Zinmo saw this scene, and couldn't help but envy. Obviously, these remaining traces contain a trace of truth. From the current point of view, the strong who can leave mark on the city wall is probably a strong man who has ascended to heaven. Even the Xian Wu Saint may not be able to leave a trace in this dark city, even after countless years of baptism and erosion. But these marks have not been erased, and the truth still exists. When the destined person in the future comes, this trace of truth will be activated. Don't you want to look for it? Maybe you have it too? Qin Yang said that's right. That's right. Zhao Zinmo woke up from a dream and hurriedly walked around the dark giant wall. You know, this dark giant wall is not only high, but also stretches for thousands of miles, and you can't see the end at a glance. Zhao Zinmo groped along the dark giant wall for more than half an hour, and finally felt a ray of energy. It was a charred mark, as if it was a trace of some kind of strong explosion. Zhao Zinmo knew that this was produced by the talisman formation. He hurriedly felt this breath of energy. Soon, he also entered a state similar to Liu Yun and King Niu. And Qin Yang, the same was true. He looked at the dragon subduing fist seal, and it seemed that a tyrannical figure appeared in his eyes, constantly fighting with the ghost species. The figure continued to use the dragon subduing fist, with unparalleled divine power, looking down on all directions. One by one, the terrifying ghost species were suppressed and killed by him. And the proficiency of the dragon subduing fist was also growing wildly. Several people stayed in front of the dark giant wall, until a day later, Qin Yang's eyes were rejuvenated. At the same time, a terrifying divine power spread out from him, and even the void trembled, as if it was collapsed. Dragon subduing fist, perfection, power of a dragon, before the blessing of the true meaning left by the fist seal. The dragon subduing fist actually broke through to the state of perfection in one fell swoop. At the moment of breakthrough, Qin Yang felt the strength in his arms surge, containing terrible divine power. It felt as if he could easily push down a mountain. Is this the power of a dragon? Qin Yang felt the magical power formed after the perfection of the dragon subduing fist. The power of a dragon is the power of a giant dragon. No one knows how strong the power of the ancient giant dragon is. But it should not be difficult to move mountains and fill the sea. And Qin Yang now has such terrible power. Look for it again. See if there is a 9 swords of the wild sea. After Qin Yang saluted the fist print, he also walked around the dark giant wall. He practiced many martial arts, and maybe he could find the relevant true meaning in this dark giant wall. But after searching for a few days, Qin Yang still had no harvest, and had to give up helplessly. At this time, he met an old acquaintance at the city gate, white-browed old monk. In addition to him, people from the Xianjian sect, Zuxan Palace, and Kaixing sect were also there. These Holy Land forces gathered in front of the city gate, seemingly discussing how to attack the dark giant city. I didn't expect that you arrived earlier than us. The white-browed monk saw Qin Yang, and came forward to greet him. I just arrived one day earlier, Qin Yang said softly. He could feel that the white-browed monk was in a bad state at this time. He seemed to have suffered some injuries. He might have experienced some battles before. I see. Donor, are you interested in entering the city with us? The white-browed monk invited him. He saw Qin Yang's strength with his own eyes. Even though his cultivation was only that of a sensing martial saint, his combat power was extremely strong, and was definitely not weaker than that of a Dharmakaya martial saint. Of course. But I have a few friends who are trying to comprehend the mark of the city wall. They may have to wait for some time. Qin Yang explained. Liu Yun, Zhao Zinmo and others are not like him. They don't have a proficiency panel. If they want to comprehend the true meaning, I'm afraid it will take some time. It doesn't matter. We didn't enter the dark city so quickly. The white-browed monk smiled. Then I'll wait for the master's news. Qin Yang nodded and said goodbye. Baimei, who is this person? The old man with a sword on his back from the Xianjian sect looked at Qin Yang's back and asked curiously. I met this donor on the road, and he helped me kill a ghost. The old monk with white eyebrows clasped his hands together. No wonder you invited him to join us. The old man of Xianjian nodded. These days, they divided into 5 groups, and walked almost all over the desolate moon-forbidden land. But there was no clue to what they wanted to find. The last hope was the Dark City. But no one knew the situation inside, and it would be best to have more power. Jiang Sheng and others did not object after knowing it. They began to discuss how to open this huge and dark city gate in front of the city gate. 5 days later. Whoosh! A shocking sword intent suddenly rose from Liu Yan. This sword intent was too dazzling, as if the sky was cut off, and a dazzling white line appeared. This sword intent. This kind of soul fluctuation. Someone has broken through to the level of Yuanshan Spirit Master. The old man with a sword on his back from the Xianjian sect was particularly keen on the sword intent. He looked at the place where the sword intent rose with a look of horror. It should be the friend of that donor. The old monk with white eyebrows said softly. He knew that it was Liu Yan who obtained the inheritance of the magic sword. Yuanshan Spirit Master, or Sword Cultivator, is rare in ancient and modern times. The Taoist in the 7-star robe was surprised. Generally, people who practice swords are warriors. There are many sword saints who practice to the level of martial saints with swords. The old man with a sword on his back is one of them. But when a spiritual master practices sword, he sacrifices his heart to the sword, which requires an extremely paranoid and crazy mind to do it. Therefore, there are very few spiritual masters who take the path of sword cultivation. Sword cultivators who can enter the Yuanshan realm should not have appeared since the end of the ancient times. Moo. Before the surprise of the white eyebrows, the old man with a sword on his back and others passed. They heard another terrible bull roar. A surge of evil spirit suddenly rose up and turned into a demonic cloud covering the sky and the sun. Such a strong demonic aura. Is it a powerful demon coming? Said the middle-aged woman from Zuxan Palace. No, it's also a friend of the donor. It looks like a bull demon. The white-browed monk put his hands together. Chapter 344 Entering the City. Hearing what the white-browed monk said, the old man with a sword on his back, Jiang Sheng and others were speechless. This kid is not only interesting as a person, even the friends he makes are quite interesting. The old man with a sword on his back shook his head. Sword cultivators, bull demons. These are rare figures in Xianfeng continent. They all came together. That little donor is indeed a strange person. The white-browed monk nodded. What did this big stupid bull do? It made such a big noise. Zhao Zinmo shook his head and said. He had already completed the comprehension a day ago. But he restrained his breath and didn't make any noise. Of course, after this opportunity, his cultivation also broke through to the realm of Yuanshan Spirit Master. It hasn't practiced for a long time, and it can't control the demonic energy in its body at all. Liu Yan is the magic sword in his body, and he should not be able to fully control it yet. Qin Yang said softly. Soon, Liu Yan and King Niu came over. Qin Yang brought them to meet up with the white-browed monk and others. Donor, you've come just in time. I was just about to look for you. The white-browed old monk smiled. It seems that the master has found a way to get in. Qin Yang said softly. It's not difficult to get in. Yesterday, a disciple of the Xianjian sect went in. The white-browed old monk put his hands together. How did he get in? Qin Yang asked in surprise. He had been near the city gate yesterday and didn't hear any movement. In fact, we think too much. Actually, you can get in by putting your hand on the city gate. The Taoist in the 7-star robe said softly. After that person went in, did he make any movement? Qin Yang asked. No. But since we have found a way to get in, no matter what is hidden behind this huge dark wall, we must go in and find out. The old man with a sword on his back said firmly. The senior is right. For the sake of the living beings in this world, we have no choice but to do it. Liu Yan said in a deep voice. Good boy. It may be that people who practice swords appreciate each other, When the old man with a sword on his back heard Liu Yun's words, his face was full of admiration. Even Jiang Sheng and others looked at Liu Yun more. If such words were spoken by ordinary people, naturally no one would believe it. But Liu Yun was different. He exuded the aura of justice and uprightness. Moreover, he was also a spiritual master with an extremely extreme personality. Just from these words, Jiang Sheng and others knew that Liu Yun's personality should be extremely righteous and paranoid. If he could sacrifice himself to save the people, he would definitely sacrifice himself without hesitation. Qin Yang discussed with Zhao Xinmo. The other party also wanted to go into this dark giant city to see it. As for the blue bull, it would follow Qin Yang wherever he went. After Qin Yang nodded, the old man with a sword on his back said directly, "Then we will go directly into this dark giant city. I want to see what is hidden in this dark giant city." As he said, he took the people of Xianjianmen to enter first. I saw more than a dozen people put their hands on the huge black city gate at the same time. The next moment, more than a dozen people including the old man with a sword on his back disappeared silently. There was no fluctuation, nor the strange twisted aura that was unique to ghosts. What happened? Qin Yang looked at Zhao Xinmo. He thought it might be something like a formation restriction. I can't tell. Even Zhao Xinmo frowned. Just now he was concentrating on observing the old man with a sword on his back and others. It seems that this dark city is really a bit weird. Qin Yang's expression was solemn. After the old man with a sword on his back went in, it was a 7-star sect, the Zuxan sect, Jiang Sheng, the old monk with white eyebrows and others. In the end, only Qin Yang, Liu Yun, Zhao Xinmo and King Niu stood in front of the city gate. The disciples of Qin sect stayed where they were. Their cultivation was too low, so it was useless to go in. "Everyone, I'll go first." Liu Yun clasped his fists. "Let's go together," Qin Yang said in a deep voice. As he said that, the four of them came to the city gate at the same time. "Why do I feel like I'm going to hell?" Zhao Xinmo suddenly said. "Even if you go to hell, I will pull you out." Qin Yang smiled. "That'll do." Zhao Xinmo chuckled. "Master, you don't need to do anything. Just call me Master Niu, and I can save you." King Niu said carelessly. "Let's talk later." Zhao Xinmo naturally wouldn't call now. If he called now, King Niu might not save him later. After joking, several people put their hands in the city gate with a relaxed look. The next moment, several people instantly disappeared in front of the dark city gate. It was as if the eyes were only dark for a moment. When the light in his eyes returned, Qin Yang found himself in a desolate wilderness. It was dark at night, and the sky was full of stars. Am I teleported out? Qin Yang frowned slightly. He thought that the dark city gate teleported him out of the desolate moon forbidden land, and returned to the Xianfeng continent. Because the concentration of spiritual energy here is almost exactly the same as that of the Xianfeng continent. Even if they were teleported out, where did Zhao Xinmo, King Niu and the others go? We clearly put our hands on the city gate together. Qin Yang spread his senses, and except for some wild beasts, he did not detect any aura. The next moment, a ferocious wild wolf came behind Qin Yang without knowing when, and pounced on him fiercely. Bang! Qin Yang swung it out, as if slapping a fly. The wild wolf quickly melted under the moonlight, turned into a pile of blood, and flew away. The wild beast. It seems that it was really teleported out, Qin Yang said to himself. Wild wolves naturally could not appear in the desolate moon forbidden land. In addition, he also confirmed that his mind was not polluted. Let's find out if Zhao Xinmo and the others are in this place first. Qin Yang searched in this wilderness. As he continued to expand the scope, he still did not find the aura of Zhao Xinmo and others, but a human town appeared in his eyes. Just at this time, the sky was slightly bright, and there was obviously some movement in the town. Qin Yang planned to go in and ask around to see where he was now. After entering the county town, we saw neatly arranged buildings and clean and spacious streets. Some vegetable farmers and butchers were already on their way to the vegetable market. The steamed buns shop and noodle stalls had already started shouting. It seemed to be a peaceful scene. Even Qin Yang himself was a little surprised. Which sect in Xianfeng continent is in charge of this place? Is it one of those sect's holy places? Qin Yang looked strange. The forbidden spell of isolating the heaven and earth was invalid. The spiritual energy was revived, and there were ghosts and evil spirits everywhere, and there was no peace. All the strength of the sects in this area was beyond imagination. Just when Qin Yang was about to find a noodle stall to ask, with a clang, a leisurely bell rang suddenly in the distance. For a moment, the originally quiet street suddenly became noisy. Many doors were pushed open, and people holding thin incense kept walking out of the houses, and then went in the direction of the bell. Everyone looked pious and kept order. The scene looked very chaotic, but there was no noise. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 345 Temple Priest. Qin Yang thought at first that he had just stepped into an ordinary town. But when he saw the scene in front of him, he felt that there might be something fishy about this place. This scene was weird. Even the people in the breakfast shops and bun shops followed the crowd. Not even doing business? Where are they going? Qin Yang was curious and wanted to follow them to see. The crowd was moving forward in a mighty way. It seemed that everyone in the town had come out. Soon, they came to the county square. There was an extremely wide square here. In front of it was a magnificent temple made of white stones. After arriving at the square, all the people knelt down in the direction of the temple. Just at this time, a ray of morning light fell into the temple, revealing a hint of sacred light. Qin Yang hid in a shadow, looking at the temple from a distance, with a look of surprise. Judging from the breath emitted by the temple, there seemed to be no gloomy and strange air. But he just felt something strange. Soon, he wanted to know where this weirdness came from. Because this temple is neither like a Taoist temple nor a Buddhist temple. This kind of temple's architectural style is something Qin Yang has never seen before. At this time, an old man in a white robe and a tall crown came out. Meet the temple keeper. The moment the old man came out, everyone kowtowed to him. The old man with the tall crown was not surprised and said loudly, "Burn incense." Immediately, the kneeling people entered the temple in an orderly manner to burn incense. It was not until an hour later that the people surrounding the temple gradually dispersed. Burn incense. What is inside this temple? Neither Taoism nor Buddhism. Qin Yang looked curious. After the incense was finished, the door of the temple was tightly closed, so Qin Yang could not see what the temple looked like. He was not in a hurry and quietly left the temple first. Afterwards, he found a bookstore in the county and looked up some relevant information. Half an hour later, Qin Yang walked out of the bookstore with a solemn expression. He came to a place by the river and sat down under the shade of a willow tree, looking at the green river water, and fell into deep thought. At first, he thought he was teleported out of the forbidden land of Desolate Moon and returned to the Cheyenne Feng continent. But when he found some historical books in the bookstore, he realized that he was wrong. The place where he was now was not in the Cheyenne Feng continent at all, but a country called Dao Kingdom. This Dao Kingdom has 12 states, and he is currently in a county town in Lengaiyu state. The most critical problem is that this Dao Kingdom is very closed. They have never come into contact with any foreign forces, and no one has ever left the territory of this Dao Kingdom. Because in the legend of the Dao Kingdom, the world they live in is surrounded by an evil darkness, and only the territory of the Dao Kingdom is illuminated by the god of Desolate Moon, so it will be safe. Once you leave the Dao Kingdom, you will be corroded by darkness, and even your soul will be annihilated. Therefore, the people of this Dao Kingdom never explore the outside world, nor do they have any communication with the outside world. After reading these records at that time, Qin Yang himself was shocked and doubtful. Could this so-called Great Moon Kingdom be in the Dark City? After Qin Yang finished reading those books, he had some guesses in his mind. The so-called Wild Moon God sounded very related to the Wild Moon Immortal Venerable. Maybe it was the Wild Moon Immortal Venerable himself. At first, Qin Yang thought that the Dark City must be in a mess, with ruins everywhere. After all, this was the core of the war of destroying the heavens. But he never thought that there was a human kingdom in this Dark City. Although it could not communicate with the outside world, it seemed to be a little safer than the outside world. Could it be that this great moon kingdom was established by the wild moon immortal venerable? Qin Yang frowned slightly. He felt that it was not that simple. After all, the information he came into contact with was all some ordinary books. Some things were inaccessible to ordinary people. Qin Yang stayed by the river for a long time. It was not until after dark that he quietly left. This time, he wanted to sneak into the temple in the dead of night to find out. After nightfall, this small city seemed a little weird. No one was walking on the street. According to the legend of Dao country, people cannot go out at night and must recite scriptures in the house to continuously offer their faith to the god of Wild Moon. In this way, the god of Wild Moon can continuously radiate divine power and protect the people of Dao country. So Qin Yang could hear the chanting coming from the house all the way. God of Moon protects me. Dispels the darkness. The whispering chanting sound continued to gather, making Qin Yang feel a little annoyed. He hated this kind of supernatural things the most. Is this really passed down by the immortal Lord Wild Moon? Qin Yang didn't quite believe it. When he came to the vicinity of the temple, it was even more exaggerated. Many figures were kneeling in front of the temple, constantly reciting scriptures. There were men, women, young and old. However, the gate of the temple was never opened and was tightly closed. Qin Yang thought about it and then quietly approached the temple and then directly climbed over the wall to go in. With his body skills and speed, naturally no one could detect it. Inside the temple is a grand hall. In the middle of the hall is a white jade crescent moon instead of a statue. The white jade crescent moon is more than 2 meters high, emitting a bright silver light, illuminating the dark hall. Why is there not even a statue? Qin Yang frowned. At this time, the white-robed temple keeper was also in the hall. However, he was not chanting, but sleeping soundly. Qin Yang was hiding his aura, so he naturally couldn't find it. Strange. Qin Yang felt more and more strange. But at this moment, the white jade crescent moon in the depths of the hall seemed to sense Qin Yang's presence. Whoosh! A silver light suddenly shot towards Qin Yang. Puff! Qin Yang opened his palm, condensed the Bidao Zen Wu Yuan key, and offset it. Rumble! The white jade crescent moon suddenly vibrated wildly. The sleeping temple keeper was suddenly awakened. Whoosh! The white jade crescent moon shot out a silver light again. This time, it was not aimed at Qin Yang, but at the temple keeper. In an instant, the temple keeper's eyes turned pale. Evil demon from darkness. Let the light of the desolate moon purify you. The temple keeper looked at Qin Yang and screamed wildly. His body suddenly swelled, and his thick and explosive muscles piled up layer by layer, and he instantly turned into a giant more than 3 meters tall. Boom. The next moment, the floor of the entire hall was crushed by the temple keeper. He appeared in front of Qin Yang and grabbed Qin Yang with his big hand. Bang! Qin Yang punched lightly. In an instant, the void in front of him twisted violently and turned into a terrible force. Puff! Exclamation mark. The temple keeper's giant hand instantly broke and shattered. Qin Yang's fist did not stop and hit the temple keeper's head. Chapter 346 Absurd. Bang! When Qin Yang's dragon subduing fist hit the temple keeper's head, the terrifying force penetrated it directly. The next moment, Qin Yang's eyes changed, and he exerted force with his feet. Boom. He soared into the sky like a cannonball, and even smashed a hole in the roof of the temple. The body of the temple keeper suddenly exploded. Countless silver lights instantly engulfed and annihilated the temple, and spread to the square in an instant. Qin Yang exerted force again in the air, rushing into the distance like a flash of lightning. With his current cultivation, he can stay in the air for a short period of time. When he escaped from the explosion range of the silver light and landed on the ground, he frowned slightly. The place where he landed was in an alley. A large number of people rushed in with torches. Their eyes were scarlet, like wild beasts, and many people had weapons in their hands. Even if they didn't have weapons, they held bricks, iron bars and other things. Kill him. He is a demon from the evil darkness. The temple has been destroyed by him. The temple keeper has also been killed by him. Quick, kill the demon. The people rushed towards Qin Yang desperately. Boring. Qin Yang raised his right leg and stomped hard on the ground. Boom. As his power penetrated into the earth, the ground instantly cracked into many fine cracks and shook wildly, like a dragon turning over. The people screamed and were constantly shaken to the ground. Many houses collapsed in this violent shaking. Qin Yang then dodged and left. Qin Yang quickly left the town and came to the wilderness. Weird, it's really weird. Why is this happening? Qin Yang stood in the dark hillside, his eyes flashing with surprise. The so-called temple dedicated to the god of desolate moon did not even have a real body, only a white jade crescent moon statue. And the white jade crescent moon statue seemed to have some kind of consciousness and could detect his existence and was full of hostility. In the end, it possessed the temple keeper and exploded directly. This shows that the so-called god of desolate moon should know who he is and where he comes from. He built a temple in the name of Desolate Moon Immortal, but dared not show his true face to others. It seems that this god of Desolate Moon is really a fraud. He actually deceived the entire people of Dao country. Qin Yang murmured to himself. He felt that this so-called god of Desolate Moon was not the Desolate Moon Immortal, but just used the name of Desolate Moon Immortal to continuously absorb the power of faith and incense from the mortals of Dao country. As for who this god of Desolate Moon is, Qin Yang does not know. It may be that dark seed, or it may be other powerful ghost seeds. He needs more information to know. So, he plans to go to a place, the capital of Dao country, Shenyu City. It is said that there is a clone of the god of Desolate Moon guarding there, which is the supreme holy place of Dao country. All the answers may be revealed there. He has memorized the terrain of Dao country in his mind today, and his figure flashed and quickly went to Shenyu City. Qin Yang is currently in Lengyu state. He still needs to cross 5 or 6 states to reach Shenyu City. Based on the area of Dao country, Qin Yang felt that he would need about 10 days. But it would not be so smooth. 3 days later, he encountered the first blockade. In a plain official road, a vicissitudes of life swordsman holding a long sword blocked Qin Yang. Although the swordsman had a beard, his handsome features could still be seen. He looked at Qin Yang and said lightly, "Devil from the evil darkness, your death is coming." "My death is coming? Then let me ask, who will send me on the road?" Qin Yang asked with interest. "I'm Li Gong, the 3rd rank Dao swordsman. Kill you, and I will be the first." The vicissitudes of life swordsman said softly. "So you want to kill me and use me as a stepping stone?" Qin Yang suddenly realized. That's right. Devils like you can be killed by everyone. The vicissitudes of life swordsman sneered. "Then come on. Let me see how strong the 3rd swordsman of Dao is," Qin Yang said with a smile. His contempt seemed to make the Kangsang swordsman somewhat dissatisfied. "You know, in Dao country, everyone is afraid of his fast sword." This time, the Kangsang swordsman also wanted to let Qin Yang know how fast his sword is. He narrowed his eyes. The next moment, he drew out his long sword at an extremely fast speed and stabbed it out suddenly. The sword light, like a flash of a flower, crossed dozens of meters and appeared in front of Qin Yang. Then, Qin Yang tilted his head and dodged the sword. "Your sword is so slow." Qin Yang frowned. "How is it possible?" The Kangsang swordsman seemed unable to accept it, shaking his wrists frantically, and a large piece of sword light was sprinkled. But Qin Yang stood in place, not even moving his feet, and dodged all the sword lights stabbed by the Kangsang swordsman in various postures. "Too slow. How can you be so slow?" Qin Yang's light voice reached the ears of the Kangsang swordsman. How could the vicissitude swordsman accept this? He roared in anger, bursting out all the vitality in his body, and slashed out with a sword. This sword burst out with a terrible sword light. Then, Qin Yang gently stretched out a finger and lightly touched the tip of the sword. Bang! The whole long sword suddenly broke and cracked. The vicissitude swordsman was stunned. Qin Yang did not kill him, but left him directly. Why? Is it just a joke? After practicing swordsmanship for decades? The vicissitude swordsman muttered to himself in despair. Finally, he shook his head helplessly and slapped his forehead with a palm. Bang! The head shattered, and the flesh and brain burst out. Qin Yang seemed to have anticipated the fate of this vicissitude swordsman. This is a heart attack. Once the mind is broken and falls into self-doubt, it is destined that the swordsman will choose suicide. This is also the last dignity of a swordsman. One day later, Qin Yang hid his breath, disguised himself, and sneaked into a city to inquire about the news. This city is a state capital, called Biu City, with a population of several million and many experts. In a restaurant, many drinkers were discussing the recent invasion of evil spirits. There are more and more dark evil spirits invading recently. Yes, evil spirits have appeared everywhere in Dayu country and destroyed many temples. These dark evil spirits are really hateful. If they appear in our city, I will fight them to the death. Someone got excited. That's right, the dark evil spirits are invading, and we must do our best to stop them. Me too. Many people echoed. At this time, another person said, I heard that these dark evil spirits appeared this time, and they have big plans. Yes, according to the current news, they seem to be consciously approaching Shenyu City. Shenyu City? This is my Dayu holy land, where the clone of the god of Desolate Moon is located. Are they going to destroy Shenyu City? So vicious. For a while, everyone in the lobby of the restaurant became angry, and many people were already grumbling about protecting Shenyu City. Qin Yang sat in the corner, drinking tea calmly. Chapter 347 Blocking the Road. It seems that Zhao Zinmo, King Niu and the others have come in, but they have been scattered everywhere. Qin Yang heard the conversation of these people and roughly understood. After being scattered, they naturally had to find a place to meet up. Shenyu City became the best place. Don't worry, I heard that the great Yu royal family and the temple are already summoning masters from all over the world to gather in Shenyu City. As long as the evil demon dares to appear, it will definitely be wiped out. That couldn't be better. The people in the restaurant were all excited when they heard the news. They seemed to see the scene of masters from all over the world gathering together to kill demons and eliminate monsters. Qin Yang smiled and disappeared in the restaurant in the blink of an eye. Just when he was about to leave the city, he found that the city gate was blocked by people. What's going on? Qin Yang raised his eyebrows and quietly mixed into the crowd. I heard that this time city lords Zhao caught 3 dark evil demons back. So many? As expected, city lord Zhao still has to take action. I don't know what this evil demon looks like. We'll know later. Hearing this, Qin Yang's expression moved. He didn't expect that someone was actually caught. However, Biu City is a state capital after all, and there should be many masters. With the assistance of the Desolate Moon Temple, its strength should not be underestimated. Moreover, some elite disciples from the Holy Land came in this time. Most of these disciples are in the real gang realm or the sensing martial saint realm, and their cultivation is weaker, so it is normal for them to be caught. Qin Yang just hid in the crowd and watched the excitement. Soon, a team slowly walked into the city. The leader was tall, holding a spear, wearing white scale armor, and was heroic. It was Zhao Qishan, the lord of Biu City. There was another person beside him, wearing a white robe, a high crown, and a kind face. This person was the temple priest of the Biu temple. In the Great Yu Kingdom, the Desolate Moon Temple has the highest status. Even the Great Yu royal family must obey the orders of the Desolate Moon Temple. Of course, the Desolate Moon Temple will not interfere in the affairs of the Great Yu Kingdom, unless the dark evil demon is born. For the Desolate Moon Temple, nothing is more important than killing the dark evil demon. In their understanding, the dark demon was extremely evil. Once it appeared, it meant that the world might be destroyed. They had to do their best to stop it. As for the back, there was a prisoner van. 3 young men with bruises all over their bodies were trapped in the prisoner van. Their hands and feet were chained, and their breath was weak. Is this the dark demon? How come it looks exactly like us? So this demon is cunning and changeable. If it weren't for the temple keeper, we wouldn't be able to recognize it. Kill the dark demon. Kill the dark demon. The people were furious and threw stones and rotten eggs at the prisoner van crazily. Everyone, this dark demon has accomplices. After we finish the interrogation, we will naturally execute him. Please restrain yourself. Zhao Qishan said loudly. His prestige in Biu City was so great that the angry people stopped throwing things immediately. The Biu temple keeper also said, among the crowd watching now, there may be the dark evil demon. I can only tell you that all darkness will be dispelled by the god of Wild Moon. Hearing this, the people cheered instantly and even recited the Divine Moon Sutra. God Moon protects me and dispels the darkness. God Moon protects me and dispels the darkness. God Moon protects me and dispels the darkness. Qin Yang was in the crowd and was upset. Looking at Zhao Qishan and the temple keeper, he became more and more annoyed. He directly pushed through the crowd and blocked the team's way. Who are you? Zhao Qishan was slightly stunned. Evil demon. This person is an evil demon. The temple keeper seemed to have sensed something and roared loudly. Evil demon. You dare to appear in front of me. You are really looking for death. Zhao Kishan was furious when he heard this. I really can't stand you being like this. The next moment, Qin Yang suddenly appeared in front of Zhao Kishan and slapped him wildly. Bang! The Lord of Biu City felt dizzy, and his head hit the ground hard, making a small hole. Qin Yang lifted Zhao Kishan up with one hand and smashed his head to the ground as if he was holding an onion upside down. Boom. 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 3 consecutive hits. Half of Zhao Kishan's body was smashed into the ground. What a piece of shit. You dare to bark in front of me. Qin Yang sneered. For a moment, the whole place was dead silent. The onlookers hadn't figured it out yet. Aren't they celebrating Zhao Kishan's successful capture of 3 dark evil demons? How come a dark evil demon suddenly appeared and beat Zhao Kishan to death? Exclamation mark. Evil demon. The temple keeper was so angry that his whole body trembled. But a silver light immediately swept from a distant place and landed on the temple keeper. His body suddenly swelled up and turned into a 5-meter tall giant with piled muscles. The horse under his crotch could not bear such a weight and let out a whine, and its 4 hooves broke, and its body was crushed into a bloody mess by the temple keeper. The moment the temple keeper landed, he rushed towards Qin Yang like a chariot. His speed was not fast at first, but in an instant he completed a terrible acceleration, turning into a bright stream of light, and attacked fiercely. Qin Yang grinned, and a dark blow-long knife appeared in his hands, and he slashed forward fiercely. The evil dragon swallowed the evil. A ferocious and violent dragon phantom with a broken knife in its mouth collided fiercely with the temple keeper. Puff. The temple keeper's charging momentum has not stopped, but his body has been broken into 2 pieces and then exploded. This self-explosion. It is more terrifying than the last self-explosion Qin Yang encountered. The area within a radius of several miles was filled with terrible silver light. All the onlookers were swallowed up and annihilated in an instant, even the nearby houses. There was only one place that was safe. A figure was wrapped in deep blue light, forming a black tortoise shadow, covering itself and the prisoner car behind. Even though the silver light was extremely terrifying, it was still completely blocked by the Hunyuan key. When the silver light almost dissipated, Qin Yang took action to smash the prisoner car and broke the chains of the 3 people. Can you still walk? Qin Yang asked lightly. Of course you can. Thank you, Mr. Qin, for your help. The 3 young men stood up weakly and clasped their fists. Let's go. Qin Yang nodded gently. Several people quickly left Biu City. It took dozens of miles before Qin Yang stopped to rest. He took out a bottle of pills and threw it to the 3 young people. On the way, he already knew that these 3 people were disciples of Xian Jianmen. The leader was named Second Crossing. Sensing the cultivation of the martial saint, he was defeated and captured by the Biu temple master and Zhao Kishan. After Second Crossing and other scattered people expressed their gratitude to Qin Yang, they took the pills and swallowed them, practicing their skills to heal their wounds. Qin Yang suddenly had an idea. He circulated the Deadwood Immortality Sutra. Strands of green light emanated from his body and landed on Second Crossing and the other 2. Chapter 348 Arrival. The Deadwood Immortal Sutra is a very magical technique. It is almost non-aggressive, but contains a very strong vitality. When Qin Yang released the Deadwood vitality, and it fell on Second Crossing and others, they all felt a huge vitality infiltrating into their bodies. This vitality was too strong, and continued to nourish their injured bodies. The bones, flesh, and internal organs were healing rapidly. In less than half an hour, Second Crossing was the first to open his eyes. His previous serious injuries had healed almost completely. He naturally knew that all this was because of Qin Yang. Thank you, Mr. Qin. Second Crossing thanked again. It's okay. I'm just trying it. Qin Yang was thoughtful. He thought of the spiritual bud he brought out from Wuhur Immortal Mansion. Could it be that this spiritual bud also needs the nourishment of the Deadwood Immortal Vitality to be revitalized? Qin Yang felt that it was very likely. But now in Dao country, it is not the time to try this. They waited for a while, and when the other 2 disciples of Xianjian sect recovered, they continued on their way and rushed towards Shenyu City. Shenyu City is the center of Dao country. This is an ancient giant city. A desolate moon temple covering an area of hundreds of miles is located to the east of Chennai City. Opposite the desolate moon temple, that is, to the west of Chennai City, is the Deity Palace. These two huge building complexes occupy nearly half of the area of Chennai City. In the main hall of the desolate moon temple, a statue of about 1.8 meters tall is enshrined on the altar. But the statue is full of bright silver light, making it impossible to see its true face. Over the years, countless people have come to the desolate moon temple to worship, but no one has been able to see the true face of the desolate moon statue. According to the words of the desolate moon temple, mortals cannot look directly at the face of the gods, otherwise they will be punished by heaven. In the main hall, a young man in a white robe is sitting cross-legged. He has a handsome and fair face, and his facial features are almost perfect, without the slightest flaw. A pair of eyes were cold and indifferent. He was like a god, without humanity. This was the chief priest of the desolate moon temple, Zhang Yao. He had been in charge of the desolate moon temple for decades, but his appearance had not changed at all. Chief priest, the emperor is here. A voice came from outside the temple. Please let him in, Zhang Yao said indifferently. This was the terrifying thing about the desolate moon royal family. Even if the great moon emperor came in person, he had to report before entering. Soon, a tall figure in a silver white dragon robe walked in. The figure had a resolute face and heroic features. It was the great moon emperor, Sundinghu. Chief priest, I haven't seen you for more than 10 years. You still look the same. Sundinghu looked at Zhang Yao's young face and sighed. He was now over 40 years old, with grey hair on his temples. Standing next to Zhang Yao, it seemed that they were not of the same age. But in fact, Sundinghu knew that this chief priest was more than 10 years older than him. It's just a shell. Your Majesty, do you care about these things? Zhang Yao said calmly. Just a feeling. I always feel that you don't look like a man in his 70s or 80s. More like an old monster who has lived for many years and all his emotions have been worn out. Sundinghu looked at Zhang Yao and suddenly said, Your Majesty, did you come here to say these words? Zhang Yao's tone did not change. No. These days, the dark evil demons have been appearing continuously, and it is rumored that they are killing towards Chennai City. These dark evil demons are very powerful. Some martial arts masters want to resist them, but they are constantly killed. This time, I came here to ask the Grand Temple Priest how to deal with it. Sundinghu said in a deep voice. Your Majesty, don't worry. When the dark evil demons gather together, I will ask the God of Desolate Moon to come. At that time, all darkness will be eliminated. Zhang Yao said calmly. It's enough for the Grand Temple Priest to say this. Sundinghu nodded. The Temple of the Desolate Moon God is a quiet place. Your Majesty, if you have nothing to do, please leave. The Zhang Yao actually ordered Sundinghu to leave. Sundinghu narrowed his eyes. He was the king of a country, above all others, and was invaluable. But in front of this person, it seemed useless. In the end, Sundinghu still held back his temper and said lightly, Then I look forward to the great temple priest showing his skills. With that, he turned and left the hall. The Zhang Yao didn't care, and closed his eyes. Sundinghu returned to the Deity Palace, and came to a secret room. Ancestor. Sundinghu said softly. An old voice came from the darkness of the secret room. What's the matter? Sundinghu said respectfully. Ancestor, the Zhang Yao has agreed to take action. When the dark evil demon comes, he will invite the God of the Desolate Moon to come. The old voice suddenly rose. Very good. I also want to see what the God of the Desolate Moon is. Ancestor, even you haven't seen the true face of the God of the Desolate Moon? Sundinghu said curiously. No one has ever seen the so-called God of Desolate Moon. Everything is spread from the Desolate Moon Temple, including the so-called Dark Demon. It is the Desolate Moon Temple that has the final say. The old voice was full of doubt. Then, Ancestor, how should we deal with the attack of the Dark Demon this time? Let the Desolate Moon Temple deal with it alone. Sundinghu asked in a low voice. The old voice pondered for a while. Just pretend. Let the Desolate Moon Temple and the Dark Demon fight each other. We will reap the benefits. Sundinghu nodded. I understand. In fact, I also know what grudges this Dark Demon has with the Desolate Moon Temple. The old voice was full of curiosity. Perhaps, we will know soon. Sunding Hu said softly. In Daewoo, most people believe in the desolate moon temple, except for the Daewoo royal family. This is not because they have discovered any lies of the desolate moon temple. It comes from the struggle for power. In the following days, Shenyu City can be said to be turbulent. Many masters from all over the world came to protect the temple. They all stayed in the Wild Moon Temple, waiting for the arrival of the dark evil demons. After these days of fighting, they have realized that without the support of the Wild Moon Temple, it is difficult for them to pose a threat to these dark evil demons. Outside Daewoo City, countless tents stood in a row, and the atmosphere was solemn and murderous. This camp was the most elite army of Daewoo country, the north camp of the Shenyu army. A large flag embroidered with a crescent cloud pattern was planted in the center of the camp, fluttering in the wind. In the camp, many soldiers were also alert and were constantly patrolling back and forth. Whoosh! A sharp whistle suddenly passed over the Shenyu army camp. Everyone's eardrums suddenly ruptured. The next moment, the Shenyu flag was cut off by a touch of sword energy. Who comes to provoke my Shenyu camp? A burly general shouted suddenly. Soon, the well-trained Shenyu army, led by this burly general, quickly gathered at the entrance of the camp. In the distance, a figure with a sword on his back slowly came. Chapter 349, Broken Army. Who is coming? The leader of the Shenyu army held a machete in his hand, looked at the slowly approaching figure with a sword on his back, and shouted, "Who is coming?" At the same time, the tens of thousands of Shenyu soldiers wearing armor behind him also shouted angrily at the same time. For a moment, the rolling murderosaur from these Shenyu soldiers rushed into the sky and pressed towards the old man with a sword on his back. The murderosaurus swept across the sky like a blood dragon trying to devour the old man with a sword on his back. This was the murderosaur condensed by tens of thousands of well-trained soldiers. It was so terrible that even ghosts and gods would be frightened. The old man with a sword on his back looked at the rolling murderosaur, his expression calm, and drew out the long sword behind him. Clang! A loud sword sound suddenly pierced through the sky. It was an ordinary looking iron sword. Maybe because it had not been unsheathed for a long time, some mottled rust could even be seen. It was ordinary. But when the old man with a sword on his back swung this iron sword, the clouds in the sky surged wildly and finally turned into a iron Xianjian that was tens of meters long. This Xianjian and the old man with the sword on his back completely overlapped and fiercely slashed towards the Shenyu army. Puff! The murderous dragon was suddenly cut by the iron Xianjian and turned into a blood-red efflow and dissipated. In an instant, tens of thousands of Shenyu army soldiers suffered a severe mental trauma. Blood spurted from their mouths and noses and screamed. This is the power of the sword saint. One man and one sword. He shattered the minds of tens of thousands of Shenyu army. Follow me to charge. The Shenyu army general saw this scene and immediately roared, dragging his machete and charging at the old man with the sword on his back. The Shenyu army soldiers behind him had fierce eyes and followed the general to kill the old man with the sword on his back. What a pity. The old man with the sword on his backside. Then, he also killed the group of Shenyu army with one sword. He casually swung out a sword, which could cut out a sword energy of tens of meters, causing bloody storms and nearly 100 casualties. With every step and every sword, no one could stop him. Countless sword energies were entangled around him, and all the soldiers who approached would be torn to pieces. In an instant, this place became a sea of blood and corpses. Finally, these Shenyu army soldiers were finally frightened by the old man with the sword on his back and fled into the city frantically. The old man with the sword on his back looked at the towering walls of Shenyu City, hundreds of meters away, and casually swung out a sword. A wisp of sword energy whistled out suddenly, splitting the earth and forming a huge crack. When it fell behind the wall, there was a loud bang. The entire wall was cut into two pieces by the sword energy. This seemed like a demonstration and provocation. However, the old man with the sword on his back did not take the next step, but turned and left. But his actions made the people in Shenyu City feel terrified. Is this the power of the dark demon? How terrifying. One man and one sword defeated the entire northern camp of the Shenyu army. Where is the desolate moon temple? Why didn't they show up? And where are the royal family? Didn't they summon all the masters in the world? Many people were puzzled. But a few hours later, the southern wall of Shenyu City was attacked again. It was an old monk with white eyebrows. He was bathed in white flame Buddha light, as if the Buddha had come and walked in the world. For the people of Dao country, naturally they didn't know what Buddha was. They only thought that this was the method of the dark demon. The southern camp of the Shenyu army launched a charge against him. The old monk with white eyebrows was not as murderous as the old man with a sword on his back. He just stretched out the Buddha light to prevent people from getting close. He squeezed a path through the army of the southern camp of the Shenyu army and then came to the city wall and hit it with a palm. Boom. The entire city gate suddenly collapsed and then exploded and left. After hitting this palm, the old monk with white eyebrows also left directly. After these two attacks, Shenyu city was in a state of panic. The Great Moon Palace was filled with many masters, lurking in secret. Because the north and south walls had been attacked, only the east and west walls were left. The east wall was guarded by the Great Wilderness Temple, and behind the west wall was the Great Moon Palace. This naturally made Sun Dinghu nervous, and he couldn't sleep at all. He kept an eye on the outside world, fearing that evil spirits would come in the middle of the night. Outside Shenyu city, the old man with a sword on his back, the old monk with white eyebrows, the Taoist in the 7-star robe, the lord of Wangayu city Jiangsheng, and the woman from the Zuxan palace gathered together again. In fact, they had already gathered together a day ago. The reason why today's action was so ostentatious was just to let the disciples who were rushing to Shenyu city know that they were here. Elder Shen, you are crazy today. I'm afraid that the Great Moon Emperor will be unable to sleep or eat, fearing that you will break into the palace. Jiangsheng joked. If we don't kill more, these people don't know how to be afraid. I have lived for so long, slaying demons and eliminating monsters in Xianfeng continent, but I didn't expect to be called an evil demon here. The old man with a sword on his back snorted coldly. This title made him very unhappy. Amitabha. Elder Shen, don't mind. They are just deceived by the dark species. The old monk with white eyebrows clasped his hands together. It's strange to say, who would have thought that there is a human kingdom hidden in this dark giant city? The Taoist in the 7-star robe shook his head. Back then, the Dark Heaven Gate ruled this area and enslaved many human beings. Perhaps the people of Dao country are the descendants of those people back then. They have lived in the dark giant city for generations, deceived by huge lies, and never knew that there is a bigger and wider world outside. The middle-aged woman from Zuxan Palace said. For so many years, someone has been pretending to be the name of Huang Yuxin. Who do you think this person is? Asked the old man with a sword on his back. During these days in Dao country, they naturally knew that the person who built the Desolate Moon Temple was not Desolate Moon Immortal, but there was a black hand behind it who deceived the world and stole its name. I think this black hand is most likely the dark seed that descended on the world back then. The Taoist in the 7-star robe said softly. I think so too. Jiangsheng nodded. As long as we fight our way into the godly moon city, we will naturally know the answer. The woman from the Void Immortal Palace said. Wait one more day, there are still many people rushing over. Donakin hasn't arrived yet. The old monk with white eyebrows said softly. They tried to make a move today, just to attract the Desolate Moon Temple to take action. Unexpectedly, the other party did not react at all, allowing them to break through the city wall, and they did not step out of the Desolate Moon Temple, even though they lost face. This was what they did not expect. They could only choose to force the Desolate Moon Temple. He's coming. The old man with a sword on his back suddenly said. Everyone looked over. In the dark wilderness in the distance, several figures were rushing over. The one in the lead was Qin Yang. Behind him, there were 3 figures following. I didn't expect you seniors to arrive so quickly. Qin Yang greeted them with a smile. We are just approaching Shenyu city. The white-browed old monk shook his head. Then, he told Qin Yang about the situation. Sikan Crossing and others also found the old man with a sword on his back and told him about their experiences in the past few days. Hearing that it was Qin Yang who saved them, the old man with a sword on his back brought Sikan Crossing and others to thank Qin Yang. Chapter 350 Collection. After everyone greeted each other, Qin Yang asked about the situation of Zhao Zinmo and others, but the response he got was that he had not met them. Don't worry too much, Mr. Qin. Your friends may have been teleported to a more remote place, and it may take some time for them to rush over. The white-browed old monk said softly. Master, don't worry, I still have some confidence in my friends. Qin Yang smiled. Zhao Xinmo has many tricks, and now he has the inheritance of the talisman formation. Even if he can't beat those people in Huangaiyu, he will definitely have no problem running away. King Niu and Liu An also have their own inheritances, so there is no need to worry too much. Then it's waiting. Their whereabouts are not hidden, but the Huangaiyu temple didn't even send people to test them, as if they didn't exist. One day later, disciples from several major sects and holy places came one after another. Their cultivation is weaker, and naturally they are not as relaxed as the old man with a sword on his back, and they all have some injuries on their bodies. However, after a fight in Dao country, many people were touched. If they can leave the Huangaiyu forbidden land and return to the sect to practice, they may soon break through the current realm. Liu Yan and Zhao Xinmo also appeared one after another. But until it was dark, there was no sign of King Niu. Will this old cow be captured and used as a feast? Zhao Xinmo muttered. King Niu is strong, and has the stone axe of his ancestors, so nothing should happen to him. Don't worry. There's still one night, Qin Yang said calmly. He and King Niu have some mysterious connection. He could feel that King Niu was getting closer. Then I know it. The old cow must be killing people all the way here. Zhao Xinmo said speechlessly. King Niu is a fierce monster with a strong killing instinct. When he was with Qin Yang before, this killing instinct was suppressed. Now that there is a rare opportunity, he will naturally go on a killing spree. Qin Yang heard this and didn't say much. Out of sight, out of mind. A few hundred miles away on an official road, a dozen warriors were besieging a burly young man with horns on his head. Boom. King Niu suddenly split a warrior in front of him in half. His hot internal organs flowed out instantly. You dare to kill me with just these few people? King Niu was a little dissatisfied and swung the stone axe in all directions. Screams rang out. These warriors were no match for King Niu at all. When the stone axe attacked, the body was constantly dismembered into 5 or 6 pieces. After more than 10 seconds, only the broken bodies and internal organs were left on the official road. The murderous aura contained in King Niu's 2 big copper bell eyes also subsided a little. He looked at the blue-purple color emerging in the sky, and his expression changed slightly. Oh no, why is it dark? Why can't I help it, when I shouldn't be itching to do it? Forget it, let's rush to Shenai City first. After King Niu put the stone axe back on his back, he turned into his original form. A ferocious blue-black demon bull instantly appeared on the official road. He ran wildly with all 4 hooves, and rushed towards Shenai City. Along the way, even if he met someone blocking him, King Niu did not stop, but rushed directly. After running for hundreds of miles overnight, they finally arrived near Shenai City before sunrise, and saw Qin Yang and others. Old bull, you are really slow. 4 legs are not as fast as my 2 legs. Zhao Xinmo joked. I was chased by people along the way, which delayed me for some time. After King Niu turned into a human form, he snorted coldly. That's enough. I feel like you are deliberately provoking others. Zhao Xinmo laughed. Get lost. King Niu cursed directly. That's enough. You two can quarrel later. We are going to attack the desolate moon temple. Qin Yang said in a deep voice. Okay. I, King Niu, am willing to be the pioneer. King Niu was excited when he heard that they were going to attack the desolate moon temple. Then I'll leave it to you. Jiang Sheng laughed. The demon race is indeed born to fight. Then let's go. The old man with a sword on his back said lightly. This time, they did not plan to besiege the desolate moon temple. Instead, they planned to concentrate all their strength and attack directly to the east city gate. Siege will only disperse their strength. King Niu rushed to the front holding a stone axe. His body quickly collided and grew larger, turning into a bull demon more than 5 meters tall, with dark demonic energy wrapped around his body, extremely ferocious. Behind him were disciples from Xianjian sect and Jai temple. In front of the east city gate, there were naturally Shenai army guarding. In addition, the masters of the world who had gathered in Shenai City these days also appeared one after another. They stood on the top of the city, looking at King Niu's terrifying and ferocious figure, with horror in their eyes. These dark evil demons have finally revealed their feet. A woman with long hair and a cold face snorted coldly. Her name is Wei Qiyumi, a famous master of Dao country. The martial arts she practiced, the Blood Sky Mountain Plum Hand, is magical and changeable, leaving people nowhere to hide. Everyone. The Wild Moon Temple is in danger, and we still need to fight hard to kill these dark evil demons. Kill all these dark evil demons and restore the world to a bright and clear world. Many masters were roaring hard. Powerful aura burst out. They jumped down from the city wall, wanting to help the Shenai army defend. Because they knew that the seemingly solid city wall was useless in front of these dark evil demons. They had to stop them in front of the city gate. Come. Let's have a big fight. King Neo waved the stone axe and rushed directly into the formation of the Shenai army. The bloody battle began. King Neo was like a peerless evil demon, invincible, and blood was everywhere where the stone axe passed. The disciples of Xianjian sect, led by Sita Crossing, also killed people in all directions, and the sword energy was crisscrossed. The monks of Jai Temple formed a demon-suppressing formation, which was also terrible, as if the Buddha was angry and blood flowed like a river. The disciples of Kaixing sect fought on their own, using all kinds of strange means, to continuously destroy the camp of the Shenai army. In just a cup of tea, the Shenai army had a tendency to collapse. Even though they had an absolute advantage in numbers, the green ox was too terrifying and brutal, as if it was born for the battlefield. It swung its stone axe wildly, taking dozens of lives each time, and its body was covered in blood. Its dark blue fur turned blood red. Seeing this, the masters of Dao country hurriedly united to block the green ox's attack. Wei Kyumei was the first to attack. She quietly dodged behind the green ox and struck with both hands in succession. The shadows of her palms were dense, as if forming a cold plum blossom, falling on the back of the green ox. Bang! The green ox instantly felt the dense and fine cold palm power penetrated its cowhide and pierced into its internal organs. Puff! The invincible green ox suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. After that, two more masters of Dao country came towards him and launched terrible attacks. But the injured green ox was even more terrifying. It suddenly raised its hooves and trampled on the ground. Boom. The ground shook terribly in an instant, causing the two attacking masters to lose their balance. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.